Okay, thanks. Okay, call the meeting of the Wareham Board of Selectmen to order for September 22nd, 2020. Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, present this evening, all 5 selectmen, as well as the town council, as well as the town administrator.
Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Buckland, you don't even have to sit down.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, announcements. Alan.
Let's see. I'm going to make a couple announcements that are very important to our restaurant and restaurant/bar owners. Today's LGAC meeting with the Lieutenant Governor, she announced 2 important things. These will both be effective on September 28th. The restaurants can go from seating of 6 at a table to 10. And the other piece is on the bars/restaurants and also the regular restaurants, where the bar section is where you couldn't sit at the bar anymore. The bar stools will now be open, but there'll be some separation as far as the server to the actual customer, and there still has to be social distancing, but now they can actually use the bar space. So those are the 2 big changes that came today. I'll give you some other stuff later on, which I sent to everybody a couple hours ago. And, oh yeah, I also, I'm going to start with Bob White. We're going to do a TV program on stuff outside the town that affects the town. Been thinking about it for a long time, so we finally decided to go ahead and pull the trigger on it. It'll get on WCTV on a weekly basis.
I've got a show title for you.
Yeah, it's Slave and Slants is what it's called.
I was just going to say, blame them.
No. Now, the other thing, and this is just a personal comment, it gets more and more discouraging with the Democrats and the Republicans and what's going on constantly. It's like an ongoing thing. One blames the other for this, that, whatever comes up, and it goes back and forth. It's virtually a civil war between 2 parties. Unfortunately, this civil war between 2 parties is spreading to the whole country. And unless we all wake up and do something soon, the whole country is going to be in a civil war, especially after the election. So I'm asking everybody to really think about what's going on. It's not correct, it's not right, and it's not going to be pleasant. Thank you.
Patrick?
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that a little bit. I totally agree that, you know, the war between 2 parties is causing a real problem. I said this before. They ought to take some of our meetings and just take these meetings and show them and play them up on a reel up there and show them what a real meeting should be like. And the civility, even if you have a disagreement, you know, things we agree, we disagree, we whatever, but eventually we all come back and we do what we have to do. They can't seem to do that at all, and they're absolutely right. They're playing both sides against each other, and it is going to cause a civil war if it keeps it up. And these people are, I don't know what they're thinking. I can't understand it at all. I think the best thing that can happen is they all get thrown out. But what do I know? And of course, that can't happen because one side's got to win, unfortunately. As far as announcements go, I'll let that slide for now. I got, during board's comments, I have a question, thing to talk about.
Thank you. Jim? Any announcements?
No.
Judy?
Yes, I have a few. Excuse me. The Gleason Family YMCA is hosting a Halloween costume drive. Recycle your clean and gently used adult and child Halloween costumes and receive a $3 voucher toward the purchase of another costume. The day to do this would be October 10th, 9:30 a.m. The prices on the costumes will be from $2 to $10. Congratulations to the Community Youth Empowerment Group, which teamed up with Staples and gave away lots of necessary school supplies. They gave away folders, rulers, pencils, glue sticks, and notebooks. Community Youth Empowerment is also planning a fun and safe trunk or treat event on Halloween night. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. On Sunday, October 4th, at the Church of the Good Shepherd, starting at 2 p.m., there will be a blessing of the animals. Thursday, 4 to 5 at the Church of the Good Shepherd. There's a takeout meal available to anybody who will drive through the back of the church with a mask on. Thursday and Saturday, I will remind you that Damien's Pantry is open from 9 to 11:30. That's every Thursday and Saturday. And possibly the most impactful announcement is that we still need to have our citizens fill in the census report. You can go online at mycensusus.gov by September 30th. If the government deems that you haven't responded to your census, there will be census workers going from house to house to try and get the numbers up. Some people think that the census is an invasion of privacy. It actually is a way of having the government figure out where the most funds can be used in the best way. So I urge you all to fill your census out. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything. Citizen comments. Is there anybody here to speak to the board tonight? Okay, seeing no one. Board comments. Alan?
The Veterans Day Parade, which we've been pushing to get back in shape, unfortunately for this year, is going to have to be what we call a virtual parade. They will have a grand marshal. Everything will be on film and on TV. We are planning on having 3 static displays, 2 anyways, possibly a third. And by static displays, I mean basically possibly having an actual helicopter at one site, which could be over at Onset Pier. Another one could be a tank sitting outside here over where the memorial is on the actual grass area behind the parking lot. And there's a third one they're asking about, which is Center Park, where we have a pretty good memorial as it is. But that, I think, probably requires a okay from the Wareham Historic District Commission, as that is on, basically it's on, historical properties, et cetera. I don't think Mr. Sullivan has the ability actually to do that without their okay to start with. I think the only one that has is the Historical Society, because when that district was formed, the Historical Society was given July 4th as the only entity to actually use it. Judy just mentioned about Halloween. This is funny and not funny. During the discussions today, we talked about the Halloween events coming up and what the state position was and stuff. They haven't made a decision yet. They're working on it, but they're not sure if it's going to be an actual decision that will be enforceable or not enforceable. And the funny part to me anyway was that the CDC this afternoon actually put out a statement about Halloween and the event. And the comment was from several of the people, including some of the state officials, you better look at it quickly because they'll probably have to pull it down an hour later. So it is there, whether it stays or not. But if you want to have some idea where the CDC is at, there's an actual federal statement about the Halloween events. There's probably more than a 50% chance that they're not going to allow it to happen, which is kind of a shame because every time we turn around, things get shot down. And let's see what else we got today. The other piece I'm putting out a little bit early. In the discussions today, I was really hoping that Phase 3, Step 2 would actually start to happen because it's been a long time coming. There was a little good news in that they basically are now looking at every item that they have listed for Phase 3, Step 2, going over each one of them, and they are considering releasing not all of them, but some of them. One of them in particular was like indoor concerts, etc. We should have an answer in about 2 weeks on that. I was hoping for something else, but that's where we're at. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit about some of this stuff with COVID and masks. All right, so masks work, okay? There's there's no way to deny it, they work. And right now they have a very unintended consequence, and that is that they're also keeping our flu population down, or a few flu problems down as well, in case anybody doesn't know. But they're already starting to see the flu lagging just because the people are wearing masks. The problem is that there's an inherent problem with a mask, and that is everybody uses the same mask over and over and over again. They take it off, they hang it on their thing, they do whatever, then they pick it up again. Well, if you came in contact with somebody and the droplets happened to come across and they were on your mask, it protects you, okay? Not a problem. But if the droplets are on there and then you touch the front of your mask and you take it off and then you scratch your face, you got a problem. So you got to use them right. That's the other thing. See, I don't think a lot of people are even using these things right. So what you need to do is make sure that you wash your hands. You know what I'm saying? Put the mask on again if you want, but wash your hands, you know? Get some stuff, clean the hands, make sure you keep them clean. Wash your mask as often as you can. If you're lucky enough and you can have a bunch of them and you can replace them all the time, that's even better. It keeps you safer, okay? I mean, it's just a matter of fact. Now, I have seen some places in this town I'm not very happy with. I went to 7-Eleven one day. The people that are working didn't have their masks on. I went to a gas station down the street. There was people not without masks on. And I'm not very happy about it. So I'd like to have it put on our agenda to discuss the possibility of making it a provision of all the licenses that we have, that they have to wear their masks and that they have to require the people coming into their places to wear masks. Now, we can stipulate a license, anything we want on a license. We can put on the license and say, okay, this is one of the requirements, especially now that we're in the state of emergency. We have a lot of power to do that. So I'd like to talk about it on an agenda item, please, with everybody.
Yep.
We'll get council to weigh in it. We'll get everybody to weigh in on it. But, you know, we've got to do something to make sure they're following the protocol. Because I got to tell you, they're sneaking up a little right now, whether anybody realizes it or not. They are. Okay? It's starting to sneak up a little bit. And as we get a little colder here and people will go inside more, it's probably going to sneak up even more. We can stop it. We don't have to deal with this. I know everybody doesn't like wearing a mask, but guess what? If we use them, we can do anything we want. The other thing is, don't do this, please. Pull the mask down, sneeze, and then pull the mask back up. It's got to be the stupidest thing I ever see, but I see people do it all the time. They do this and they go, and then put the mask back on. It doesn't work, man. You know, that's the problem. That's why a lot of people are saying, you know, just so you know, I've been watching the shows. Everybody says, well, masks aren't exactly the greatest thing since ice cream. They're good if you use them right. Yep. Like anything else. If you don't use them properly, they won't do what you want them to do. And I don't know about you, I'm 66. I'm in that range. You know, that 65 to whatever range is dying at a rate of about 40%. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be in there. I got a few more years. I got some kids I still got to raise. I got kids that haven't got through college yet. You know, so, and you're protecting me as well as yourself if you're following the stuff. Okay? So please, everybody, let's see what we can do about being a little more conscientious about this stuff. All right? And see if we can keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thanks. Alan?
Just quick to reinforce what Patrick said. During today's discussions, the Lieutenant Governor made a very simple statement. Any city or town, any municipality can be more restricted than what the state rules are as what concerns COVID-19. So we can do basically whatever we want up to a certain point, obviously.
It isn't a big deal. It's not like we're asking them to, you know, stop working. We're asking them to keep working, but just protect yourself and the other people. That's all we're asking for you to do.
Agree. Judy?
I have a couple of follow-ups on that. I was going to make comments about masks, but obviously my peers have already done that. It's also apparently the season of, I'm cleaning out my house and I have a couple of chairs and I don't really want to take them to the dump, so I'm going to put them on the sidewalk and say, free. Well, if they stay there more than a day, they are trash and they're unsightly and somebody else didn't want them, and I just would caution people about doing that. It's, you know, there may be a great intent, but whatever. Remind people that the bylaws in Wareham forbid dogs at any time on any beach. Period. Any dogs at any time on the beach. The exception, of course, would be a service animal. I had the opportunity to be in the Board of Health yesterday. The Board of Health, following up on what you have said, is actively going into different facilities, checking to make sure that the patrons as well as the employees are using their masks. And if not, they are prepared to write them up in whatever fashion they deem necessary. So I guess that's really where I am. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Jim?
I'm gonna just slide it on over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with everybody about the masks, and, you know, it's funny, I won't leave the house without at least 3 masks in my car, because typically, when I go out, I try to hit a few spots, and, you know, it's one thing if I'm going down to, you know, Wareham Crossing, and then Walmart, and then Aldi, you know, and it's bing, bang, boom, and I'm right, you know, from one place to another, I'll just leave the mask on, I won't touch it. But if I go to a place and then I'm going to drive half an hour to somewhere else, I take the mask off, toss it on the floor of the passenger side of the car. I get to the next place, I put the next mask on. That way, I'm not, you know, handling a potentially dirty, contaminated mask any more than hooking it off my ear with my baby finger and flipping it on the floor. And then grabbing it when I leave the car and washing it, because I use the cloth mask, which of course you can wash. So, you know, if you get in the habit of always having 5 masks with you, which I try to do, but I won't leave without 3, then you can do what Patrick told you to do. It's not that hard. And, you know, it's not that hard to get masks anymore. This isn't March, this isn't April, when everybody was scrambling for masks and, you know, they weren't being produced and all this, that, and the other thing. They're available now. So, you know, your excuse can't be, well, I can't get masks. And, you know, remember, when it comes to handling the mask properly, that's protecting yourself. So, you know, if you don't have, you know, the great societal interest at heart, protecting yourself by properly handling the mask should weigh on your mind as well. So that's all I've got to say about that.
Let me just, real quick. Last week It is on, Bob.
It's the mask.
Can you hear me now, Bob? I can hear you. Okay. Yeah, last week, I went out to get a bite to eat, and the people working at the service windows didn't have the mask on. So I promptly wrote to Mr. Sullivan and the Board of Health, and let them know. And if we don't let them know when we see these things, then they can't follow up on it, because they can't be every place all the time. And, you know, you don't want to have to do that, but in order to protect ourselves and everyone else, I mean, we wear these masks to protect the other people. They do little to protect us if
Exactly.
someone's so.
I thought it was a fashion statement.
Yeah, that's yeah. So, if you have issues or you see issues going on where places aren't utilizing the mask where they should, call the Board of Health, send them an email, let them know. Thank you.
So can I say one more thing, Peter?
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to the MMA last year, and they passed out these things. Didn't even know I had them. Dug through the thing, found about half a dozen of these. They're the coolest thing. See how they're flat, like a credit card? You can stick them in your pocket, but you just spray on your hands. Bingo. You know, whatever. And I know they're available, so if you see these things, these are really neat things to get, you know? And probably not too many people looking for them, because they're kind of oddball, you know? But they're really kind of neat. And they're just a credit card size. You can keep them right in your pocket. It's kind of cool. I carry it around all the time. I have a bunch of them, so
Great.
kind of neat.
Okay, appointments, reappointments, and interviews.
Marie?
Yeah.
My understanding is the only one that we're acting on this evening is the road commissioner's
I got screwed up.
appointment,
I didn't realize we two.
which they have recommended Marie Grieg
Speak to it.
of 6 East Boulevard, Onset, Mass., to be a road commissioner to a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2022. Mrs. Grieg has in fact been attending the road commissioners' meetings for a couple of years that I'm aware of, and has shown an interest, and so it is a full recommendation from that board. So I would move that this board appoint Marie Grieg, 6 East Boulevard, Onset, Mass. 02558, to be a member of the Board of Road Commissioners for a term to expire no later than June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Alan?
Probably doesn't matter, but I believe we have a article coming up to dissolve the road commissioners back to the selectmen. As long as the person applying understands that, it may be very short-lived. I almost wonder, it has nothing, I know Marie really well, it has nothing to do with her at all, but
Right.
I'm questioning why we even, at this time, are going to appoint anybody until we actually figure out what's happening.
She knows.
Well, remember too, these are charter changes,
I know.
and so even if this gets approved at town meeting, you've got to file special legislation, you got to wait for the legislature to act, so you could be
April.
into April or May or June next year before it's acted upon, so,
Just asking.
no. No, I understand, and let's put it this way, you may not wind up with a 3-year term.
Good news is we could probably put her on something else.
I believe what they did is they put her on a 1-year term just for that reason.
Okay, we have a motion by Judy, seconded by Patrick. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, it's unanimous, 500. On the Open Space Committee here, for some reason, I was under the mistaken impression that there was just one vacancy. One of the applicants contacted us today and said they wouldn't be available to come in for an interview, so I asked the office to contact the other applicant to say, we're going to hold off and do it when you can both come in at the same time. And so, I apologize to the other applicant. I didn't realize that there actually were 2 vacancies. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the office staff to put together just a listing of the vacancies, but not just the committee where the vacancy is, but the actual number of vacancies. And then that way, I won't be able to screw it up going forward.
In this case here, I know my wife obviously was, I think, the chair of the particular committee, so I heard the noise back and forth. Ron Bessie has been before us not that long ago. We already know who and what he is, and I would make a motion to go ahead and appoint him to this committee. There's no reason to wait. I mean, there's 2 openings, there's only 2 people applying. We made the mistake, but it's on the agenda as it is right now, and I would go ahead with the 1.
What do we have in the file for recommendations?
They recommend.
We have recommendations on
Both.
both individuals.
You can actually do both if you want.
Well, what's the board's pleasure? Well, you've made a motion, so,
I'll second that.
second? Is there any discussion to be had on this?
For who is this for?
The first motion is for Mr. Bessie.
Okay, all right, I'm not gonna appoint Mr. Bessie. He's already, we just appointed him on one committee, and now we're gonna be on a second one. I wanna see how he works out on one committee before I put him on another one. Just my opinion.
I would honestly prefer to have the individuals here, because one of the questions that I would ask Mr. Bessie is, I know he just had another child, I know he and his wife are trying to start a business, and he did just get appointed to another committee, and I would ask the question, how much time do you really think that you can commit to this? Which I think is a legitimate question. So, you did ask both individuals whether they could come or whether we could postpone it, and I think that we should honor that, because I'm not able to ask the question of him or of Ms. Bradbury that I would have asked.
Alan?
In the application, it states and sign how many hours he can basically commit to it, so that, I think, is a moot point as well. Someone doesn't apply unless they're actually going to do the job. It's
Well,
up,
I
the
guess
board
I'll ask this then. Clearly, if you're looking to appoint somebody, you want to get the best vote possible for them.
I just want to correct something that you said. He did not indicate on this application how many hours per month or per week he was available.
You sure?
I'm positive I'm looking at it, sir.
You know, why don't we,
I suggest we just put it off until next week.
do you want to withdraw, Alan? And I'd rather not take the vote just right now, just to, You know what I'm saying? So whatever you'd like to do.
I'll withdraw, but basically my comment has been what's been happening right along. I really don't like the politics that's going on. Thank you.
So we'll,
There's nothing
You
political
have to
about it.
Withdraw
Yes.
your second.
I'll withdraw my second,
Thank you.
respectfully.
Well,
And,
this
you
is-
can arrange it so they can both come in?
Yeah, I will. I believe there may be one other applicant as well. I don't know if there's been a
Oh.
recommendation for the committee there.
Really?
No.
So you know what, I'm gonna have to go into the office tomorrow and figure out how many applicants we have, how many openings we have for all these positions. Maybe I'll get a memorandum out to the board, and then that way we can figure things out here and sprinkle out these
Okay.
committee assignments and do it a little better than we've been doing. Well, thank you. Thank you for withdrawing. I think that made life easier for some people. I guess that takes care of appointments. We don't have any licenses or permits.
Oh,
COVID-19 update, or do we want to jump down and just get the warrant done because
I
we've...
have one question for you, sir.
Yep.
I have noticed 3 collection bins around town. None of them are licensed. And so I'm going to be bringing that information back to the board. In the past, the only ones that we had permitted were the schools, and the school has removed the one from deacos because it was being used as a trash bin. And the other ones that I have seen in the past week driving around town are clearly trash bins. So I think we need to go back and start enforcing what we decided we were going to enforce.
Well, I think the Board of Health has been enforcing that policy.
We do, but we issue the license.
Yeah,
The-
well,
the
they've been
closed
enforcing,
collection
We
bins.
also, there are 3,
The closed collection bins?
they've been enforcing that policy. Unfortunately, they don't have any time right now.
right.
'cause
Well,
they're
actually,
stressed
there's
to the limit.
multiple,
But there are multiple enforcement
there's a
officers.
couple of different, in that bylaw, there's a couple of different enforcement agencies. I know that the, what do
We
you call
actually
it?
have
Code
a
enforcement
policy against-
officer is one who is authorized to do that, and we've got one of those coming on board pretty soon, so.
I have one, all right?
Huh?
We don't have a code enforcement officer right now.
Under the charter, the director, the commissioner of buildings is, so once he's there, you can deploy him. He likes deployments. He likes going out.
But we do have a position of code enforcement officer,
I
don't
believe the
we?
Board of Health has. a
Right,
policy.
that's not funded in this year's budget. That was one of the ones that was defunded with the cuts.
They don't allow that.
Yeah, but in terms of,
Allow them to
No, no,
shoot
so
because it's
I'm
town
just-
property.
I think it's good, you know, to regulate these things, but when we utilize the commissioner or the director of inspectional services to ride around and enforce the collection boxes, it's, you know, I don't, you know,
You know,
it's utilizing,
I agree.
yeah.
I think the Board of Health has a policy against these things in general. I think they have a policy, they don't allow.
well, no,
any.
that's our bylaw.
It's our bylaw.
But they don't allow any, even licensed or otherwise. I don't think he's allowed any because he's had nothing but trouble from all of these guys.
Can't
The
we
only
just
ones
send
he
them a
allowed was
letter?
the church.
And
school.
he allowed a
A
few
letter.
of them to be put on
School.
town property because the
So-
town had control over them. But I mean, we have to talk to them about that.
Who permits them?
We do,
The selectmen.
we do.
Yes.
Yep.
Can we just, the selectmen send these individuals where they're not,
We have been working on that process.
so
I've been
then-
sending
Yeah,
pictures.
we might just need to send a letter.
Yeah,
And
I've
then
been
if-
sending pictures of the offending collection bins to the office,
so.
to the staff, to follow up on.
Yep,
Every single one of these is turned into a trash dump.
Yep.
Every single one.
yeah.
No good deed.
Nope, we'll take care of that. COVID-19 update?
Let's just go on to the warrant.
Hmm?
Let's just go on to the warrant.
Okay, we'll come back to.
Want to talk about it after or no?
Well, I mean, I don't think, we don't have much of an update. There's been no
Okay.
real
Move
shift.
on.
Yeah,
All right.
so,
Okay, everybody has the most latest and greatest version of the draft warrant?
Good job, by the way.
I don't know, we'll see. See what you guys have to say. We're gonna go through them one article at a time. Just so the board understands, these are gonna be probably rearranged in order because typically we like to get all the town administrators' articles in one sequence, you know, community preservation in one, planning in one, you know, that sort of thing, and they're a little haphazard. It's not completely, you know, random, but it could be better, so that will be taken care of. What I would like to do is just simply read the title of each article and ask for a motion. We've already put some on, and I'll indicate those when we get to them.
Okay, so I was just going to ask you how you were going to proceed, because I want to make sure that I get all of the documentation correct for the office.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we already put approve and fund fiscal year 21 capital plan on.
Yep.
We already put the transfer of free cash on. Prior year bills, this is a housekeeping article to pay old bills that come in out of fiscal year. Something we put on every.
Motion to include.
Second.
Motion to include by Patrick, seconded by Judy. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, 500.
We put the next two on, right? Already?
The union contracts I just mentioned before, we had as the lieutenants, it's really should be the superior officers, which is the lieutenants union, so just make
You mentioned that
correct.
last week, and that was the motion that was made. The one thing I have to do here is I have to put the attribution on that it was inserted by the Board of Selectmen at the request of the town administrator, because
had
I
put it
omitted
on
that. So when we do the final warrant, that language will be on there.
All right.
But what
we
we are doing right now is to put them on the warrant.
Right.
Yes, thank you.
So a motion for the PEG access receipts,
So
please?
moved.
Second?
Okay, motion by Judy, seconded by Patrick. Any discussion? Again, this is an semi-annual thing. Every 6 months, we have to pay the TV station. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. Union contracts is all set. Accept gift of land from Eleanor M. Ellicone Trust. This was on the spring town meeting warrant. It was passed over because of the pandemic, and we wanted to get in and out of there. So this is a comeback from
So
that.
moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Judy, seconded by Patrick. Alan?
Other way around.
A motion by Patrick, seconded by Judy. Okay.
I just want to ask the town administrator, this particular land is all wetlands, et cetera, swamp. Does the town really want to take this?
We're going to probably take it one way or the other. But they're just going to stop paying taxes
I'm just
on it.
asking, is there any
The
liability?
appraised value is $600.
Yeah, is there any liability to us or not?
I wouldn't see any. If it's a
Thank you.
dump site, we can go after them,
Thank you.
so.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Next up, accept gift of land from Paul Volpe Estate. Again, this is a holdover from the spring.
Move to put it on the warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to put it on the warrant by
Same
Judy,
question,
seconded by
Alan?
Patrick.
Again,
Alan has the same question.
Same question, this land,
What do you think of the land?
same thing.
This is a less desirable piece. It's only appraised at $500 versus
know.
the 600.
what's the tax on that?
We're about just under $11, so
So, you know, between processing paperwork, and taxing and collection,
I'd rather get the,
the wash.
I just want to make
No,
sure that
and
we
I
ask the
agree.
question.
Yeah.
That's a
I
good
looked at
question,
both
though.
of them.
That's a good question.
No,
well, we will include these as being marshland in our SNEP as us having taken these as actions we've taken for climate resiliency.
Of course.
So,
Maybe we can sell them to the land trust.
For $600. For
No.
601?
I have a little higher deal than that.
Okay. All right, well, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Sign zoning bylaw amendment. I'm going to ask Director Buckland to come up on this one.
This was on the last time, too, right?
Yeah.
Might be a little different.
Yes, this had been fully vetted in the spring town meeting process and recommended by the planning board to approve.
I remember that.
Alan?
This was mostly because of the federal ruling on, which Patrick has talked about before, on political sign language, et cetera. We had to change what we have. Basically, what we've had has been illegal for probably 7 or 8 years.
That's correct. It was a Supreme Court case, the town of Gilbert, Arizona, and the Supreme Court said that the content cannot be regulated of any sign. You can regulate by district, but you can't regulate by content.
Okay, move to include,
Second.
Yeah, good.
Okay, motion to include by Packard, seconded by Jim. All in favor, say aye.
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 500. While you're up here, drive-throughs in the CS district.
Yes, there's an allowance for restaurant and non-food drive-throughs in the commercial general district, the CG district, and this would add it to the strip commercial district. The Board of Appeals thought it was appropriate because of the COVID impact and the idea of non-contact exchange of goods and food.
Okay. Have there been planning board hearings on this?
Yes, there have been, and the planning board recommended it. I would just add that this was at the request of the zoning board of appeals, not at the request of the planning board.
Okay, I'll change that. I'll make that change, and so that would be part of the motion.
Which
if
is it
one
again?
made.
ZBA.
zoning board.
Okay, Alan.
Two questions. One, Mr. Bowen, normally the planning board as a legislative group usually brings, any of the land things forward, even whether it comes from conservation or from the ZBA. So I think the correct thing is the planning board. I know it's technical, but I'm just, want to make sure we don't mess up on these.
Anybody can bring it forward as long as it had a hearing.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as long as the Board of Selectmen actually puts it on the warrant, the originator
Doesn't matter.
wouldn't have any consequence.
I just want to make sure, because we have executive versus legislative branch. The other question I have, I'm going to make an assumption, which is a bad word, that most of this is designed for West Wareham.
Actually, the CS district is a lot in the East Wareham.
Okay, we should make that clear to people as well. We have been basically.
There is CS district in West Wareham as well, and it will affect some properties there, but the largest amount of CS zoning is
Is
in
in
the
East
East
Wareham.
Wareham.
I just want to make sure people understand we're doing all of it, because there was a study done by the West Wareham group where they were vehemently against any development, so we've been getting a lot of negative, thoughts about what's happening in West Wareham.
Just so people understand, though, I think that dates back 20-something years. I know some of the same people are still around today and may have the same objections, so if
Could be 100
your
years.
point is taken,
It could be 100 years
but the
ago.
document's kind of old.
Some of the people in this town are stuck in 1950.
But again, they're all voters, we have to recognize all of them.
Yeah, it is, but the point is important that the vast majority of the strip commercial is in East Wareham, not West Wareham. I think there's about a mile-long stretch in West Wareham, something like that isn't commercial, general, or industrial.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
So there's several miles of this in East Wareham, that we know. In fact, I think it runs roughly from about, if I remember correctly, it runs roughly from about Robertson's almost all the way to the
All the way
Buzzards
to the
Bay
line.
I think.
All the way to the borderline, yes.
Yeah. So that's obviously the area of impact that's being sought here the most.
That's right.
It also down by 58, isn't that strip commercial?
There's a small portion there.
Small portion there as well, yes.
There's pieces all the way down the
Yeah,
line.
and so.
There's still good protection because
No,
of
just-
special
just-
permits,
just-
so.
Just hold on one sec. You talk about that, and we got the one at Wendy's. When it's busy, they're queuing out into the roadway that goes in front of it.
Yeah.
So it's important, that to have enough room for the maximum flow you're gonna have through there, not your average flow. Because you come across, let's say if you want to go AutoZone or Aldi's, and if it's a busy time of the day, the cars are out into the drive, it's not in the lot for Wendy's, they're out into the driveway parking lot.
You know,
So,
I agree. I agree.
This is very interesting because actually a lot of businesses that can take advantage of drive-throughs are attempting to do a scheduling process because there's so many that are going to want to use the drive-through so that people will come in at a certain scheduled time using the app on their phone to get their exchange of goods or food.
That's a
Right.
perfect solution.
And if they don't,
They don't
I'm
get
just
to
saying,
eat.
this is what's happening now. So if that goes through, that's great. And if it's gonna change things, I just brought up an issue that I see that is occurring at present, so that,
Right.
we're aware when you're looking at the length of a queue, it should be for the maximum number of cars at the highest volume and not just an average. That's just my opinion on that, that's all. Thanks.
They, you know what, I'll tell you what, they had this problem, just so you know, just recently, in Middleborough, at the Dairy Queen. And because of COVID, the lines were backed up and they were going out into the street. And it's a pretty big, that's Route 28. So it was problematic. So the town pressed them into service and said, listen, you have to control the drive-through so they don't go on to that, and that can be a condition of the special permit. And that means they had to end up having a guy there. They ended up having a cop, actually, and they divided it into 2 lanes. And if there wasn't enough room, they just sent them on their way. Said, I'm sorry, you can't come, you're going to come back around later. And they sent them on their way, but it was up to them to control the drive-in. It was a condition of their permit. So therefore, they told them, look, you got a condition of the permit, you take care of it. And that's the way it should be anyway. It's your drive-through. You should control the crowd, whatever it's going to be. And I totally agree with you, Jim. That's absolutely right. It should never be out in the street, no matter what place it is.
One of the new drive-throughs we have is doing exactly that. You'll see that in the coming months as
See,
they
exactly.
start up their new business.
And as long as that's a stipulation of their special permit, and we do it by special permit, you can enforce it pretty easily and stop it from happening.
Alan?
Just 2 simple examples. We need to keep moving on. Dunkin' Donuts on Main Street. It's very common in the morning to not even be able to get down Main Street because the traffic is out and across the road lately. So it's getting worse all the time because nobody wants to get out of their car and be in contact with people. And the other thing is there's an ice cream shop called Acushnet Creamery over in Acushnet. You have to call your order in. They record it. You get there. You have to call into the actual place. They come out with your order. You can't even go out of your car or anything. So there's constant changes of how we're doing business because of this particular pandemic. So everybody's going to have to bend.
Yeah, you're going to have to deal with issues that are going on right now. But what I'm saying is when it gets to be a regular, once we get through this, which we will, by the way, folks, we'll get through this. My father used to say it all the time. This too will end, come to a close. You know, he used to say it all the time, didn't he? Didn't they all said that in the old days? This too will end, so don't worry about it. It's going to end at some point, and then we'll go back to normal. But they still need to take care of their drive-through no matter what the issues are. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. Okay, anything else?
No, I just brought up a
No, he's
fair point.
absolutely
It's certainly
100%
something that
correct.
the Special Permitting Authority should be considering. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. And I've got ZBA as the correct requesting agency. Transfer the John Williams Deacos Elementary School at 760 Main Street, Wareham, Mass. This is another holdover
Move to
from the spring.
include.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, motion by Patrick, seconded by Judy. Judy?
Is there a deed restriction for educational purposes as there are on several of our
Not that I
town
saw.
school buildings?
No, that was the east.
Not on
The
this one.
east was. The east.
I don't believe there was for this. At some point, I think, in the discussion over the school name, I think I found the town meeting warrant article, and I don't recall that, but don't hold me to it
Nothing in
100%.
the deed, is there?
Hmm?
I don't think there's anything in the deed.
I don't recall having read anything in the deed.
Because there
it
are in at least 2 of the other schools.
I think this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the East School,
I know.
definitely.
East and
'cause
Hammond are
Yeah.
both
that came-
deed restricted for
East came up for
educational
sure, and Hammond came up before.
Yeah.
And I'm
East
positive-
came up, Hammond was the town bought the property for educational and the other land
Correct, that's how it was,
recreational.
that's right, exactly.
That's because when the fire district wanted to go there, we'd done it for recreational.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Don't matter.
I found nothing on the Deacon School when I was looking for it.
First and a second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. McKinney-Vento, we did last week.
Move to, we did it already? Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Amend zoning bylaw regarding setbacks for marijuana testing labs from schools. Director Buckland.
This is a very specific article that it would essentially only would be allowed in one instance, which is the Smithers laboratory at beside the deacos school.
Okay, this is a testing lab, so everybody, not a retail outlet, right?
Not retail, not manufacturing, not cultivation, nothing but just
Okay,
testing of small
perfect.
quantities of product.
How do they test it?
They get delivered and they do it mechanically and with,
They smoke it, Derek.
Yeah, it's not that type of testing. Just
Why, are
to
you
get out-
volunteering to be a tester?
No, sir. I have enough problem eating without that.
Exactly.
You're supposed to lose weight when you do that stuff.
Judy?
I have actually, I think, a serious question. Would this be considered spot zoning?
I would leave that up to legal counsel as to whether or not this is spot zoning. I think this is worded broadly enough that although it only applies to one instance, it could apply to more than one instance if the conditions were so right.
If this sat here for 5 years, then you could have additional testing laboratories come to town and then be eligible if this use were not made by an existing one, for example, right?
It's only an existing
Why
laboratory.
don't we just ask council to weigh in?
I agree.
It's the easy way. Be counted.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Buckland's response puts me in mind of a famous book written by JFK. No one? Okay.
Courage?
Profiles in Courage. It could have been at dawn they slept. I mean, I don't know. Well, this is a real close call, and you know, you'll just have to see what the Attorney General does with it when it comes back.
Thank you.
If the Attorney General votes against it, we can always try again after deacos has left.
It wouldn't matter then, would
Wouldn't
it?
matter then.
Yeah.
That wouldn't matter. It's still,
Irrelevant, 'cause you wouldn't have a
if he
school
calls it spot
On.
zoning, it's spot zoning. There's nothing you can do about it.
Well, and then when the school is no longer a school, it's not an issue.
It wouldn't be an issue anyway.
Hey, you know, just so I was at the meeting and I was at the meeting on the Zoom meeting. It was a meeting. It was just, and I did ask that question. Why don't you just wait? And I think there'd probably be a 6-month difference. And they just feel it's a competitive market and they'd like to get into it sooner than not. And I didn't see the big difference in the 6 months personally. I did also ask if the school committee had weighed in yet, and I don't know anything, if they had said anything or not yet to anyone. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, thank you.
Alan?
Normally, when we've had a spot zoning issue, it's usually we've specified a certain location or area. This here doesn't specify any actual zone or actual address, so it probably meets the smell test, but just barely.
It's tight. I think if there's anybody who's going to find a problem with a word, it's going to be existing.
Okay,
But
And if nobody complains,
all right. I'll move to include. We'll let the AG make the decision.
Second.
okay, motion by Patrick, seconded by Judy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. Next up, another one for the Director of Planning. Amend the zoning bylaw regarding residential use definitions.
This came about as the 180-foot breezeway connection bylaw. It's to show that the intent of a shared dwelling, a two-family or three or four or five-family, is that they are attached and share a common wall, floor or ceiling.
Makes sense to me.
What about the breezeway common floor, walls, and ceiling?
Well, there was a certain individual who tried to
Well, we
connect the
know.
buildings with a long breezeway.
We know, but I guess my point is,
I'm just gonna.
does
not
this
say it.
language eliminate a breezeway?
Yes, it does, because it wouldn't share a common wall.
Right.
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
But
all right.
one end of a breezeway attaches to the other end of the breezeway, and therefore that's a common wall. If I put a wall between him and him, that's a common wall.
No, common wall, you'd have to be next to each other, they have to touch each
One
other.
on
It's
either
the
side
same-
of the wall.
It's the same wall for both.
Yeah.
What happens if you put a door in the breezeway?
Put a door in the breezeway.
Yeah.
It wouldn't
Anyhow,
it wouldn't be as easy to get
it's so-
across.
It's something. No, it's something, I mean, you know,
I think it probably eliminates the loophole, but
I think it does.
You do.
somebody would have to be pretty darn creative to get around
and
this.
just say no. When they go to issue a permit, just say no.
Just say no. Nancy Reagan, just say no.
Seriously, and let them file, that we've,
All right, I move to include it.
Second.
Okay, motion to include by Patrick, seconded by Judy. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
right?
Opposed, abstain,
If we
5-0.
move along, we might be able to get out of here by 10 o'clock.
Don't worry about it.
We're not doing too bad. Harbor Services permit receipts reserved for appropriation.
Move to include.
Oh.
Second.
Okay, motion by Patrick, seconded by Judy. Any discussion on this? Okay, seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Right?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. Abstain? Nope. Good. 5-0, we're good. All right. Amend zoning bylaw to allow storage facilities.
I want to have some explanation about this one.
I didn't even know that. was
Yes,
coming.
there's, the redevelopment authority was provided with information that the market is, opportunities are there for storage of goods and equipment that we could take advantage of if we had it available within our zoning bylaw. Because right now, the storage facilities are not allowed. But
Correct.
whereas you may have something like Amazon or a similar kind of operation of delivery of goods sold online. And this has the ability to allow somebody to create a storage facility in the industrial zoning district that would satisfy that purpose. It does not allow self-storage units, though, which I don't think is really a market opportunity anyway. But what is available is the 20,000 or greater size warehousing distribution facilities that would fit under the storage allowance of the zoning bylaws.
See, originally, when we passed the bylaw, and I was there, when we did it, we passed the bylaw because we had all these storage facilities wanting to open up along the length of Cranberry Highway. And that was problematic because they basically bring in crap for taxes. And we had good commercial property that was being wasted, ruined, in fact. Okay, so we decided that this wasn't a good idea. We also stopped the extra storage of fuel along the same length, so that we considered that to be storage. And that was also stopped, so that there is no more gas stations allowed the length of the road either, as you well know. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea. I still think it's a good idea. I'm not sure where you're coming with this.
So what, if you don't mind, I'm trying to figure out, the storage that you were trying to stop before was self-storage, or was it, because this doesn't do self-storage.
What's the
Storage
difference?
and facility in general terms, everybody was opening up one. They were, they had a couple of buildings they were turning into storage, of all different kinds of storage, the storage for furniture, storage for this, storage for that. And you still include in here storage for furniture and so on. As I can read in here, it says large goods such as furniture and appliances and so on. And that becomes problematic.
But it says below, does not include self-storage. open
But
to
doesn't
the
include
general-
self-storage.
To the general public.
Well,
So this would be for the warehousing and distribution purposes,
So
or
basically-
ancillary to a manufacturer, for example?
Well,
I agree, so you're allowing warehouse storage.
Yes.
Is what you're talking about.
Exactly, that's what it is.
Warehouse
Doesn't say
storage
that.
in our commercial zone.
it doesn't say that.
I know it doesn't say that, but.
No, but effectively, that's what it
Well,
is.
That's the
but it
point,
doesn't
though,
say-
right?
And and can I ask,
Yeah, go ahead, yeah, Jim, go.
this is like new on me.
It is new because the planning board did not have a hearing on this one
Yeah,
yet.
and,
They didn't?
No, they did not.
no, that's why I'm like, where'd this come from? So, storage is storage. If it's ancillary to a manufacturing chairs and couches, and I need the warehouse to put my chairs and couches in, just like Factory 5 with their molded bodies, right? They have some storage in there of their molded bodies, so that's understandable. It's not a standalone storage.
Correct.
And I don't see the difference if I'm a contractor or if I'm Jim and Ace, and if I want to store something. So if we're going to have storage, it would be for both. I don't think we should say, well, you're a contractor, so you can have it. But if you're Jim and Ace and you got some stuff you want to store, you can't do it because it's, what do you call it here, self-storage. So a contractor, it's self-storage, right?
Yeah.
It's for himself, he's storing it.
We can distinguish between the two, I think, fairly clearly.
You can, but it's.
I move we do not include this in the warrant.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to not include in the warrant by
Correct.
Patrick, seconded by Jim. All in favor of the motion not to include, say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye and aye. Okay, the motion to not include carries 3-2, so this will not go on the warrant.
Can I bring up a question also? I'm probably out of line, but since everything's kind of been broken apart in the last few months, if we have two members on the board of selectmen that are also on the redevelopment authority, should they, or it's up to them personally whether they should abstain when we come to votes on that? Since they're the group that's bringing it forward to the selectmen to start with. Sorry to make life difficult, Rich.
No, it's okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think what the members would want to do if they are the proponents of the article is file a disclosure with the town clerk or make a disclosure which is public in nature that reveals the overlapping responsibilities of the parties so that it's on the record.
Thank you.
I think
Yeah,
I
'cause
did
they
that
don't make any money on this. There's no money
no,
involved.
I think I did that previously, and so I'll check with the town clerk tomorrow to see if that's still on
Still on
file.
And.
Because I believe it came up previously,
It's just
and I did that disclosure.
the appearance of conflict, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
no.
asking.
Yeah.
So, and for me, it's more that it hasn't gone through the process yet, and it's just thrown on the desk here. So, once it goes through the processes and there's, planning board hearings and public hearings on it, I'll listen to what everybody has to say and base my decision on that.
Actually, in the state law, the process written out is that the selectmen can recommend an article that the planning board then has to take to public hearing.
Didn't have the opportunity to? It's supposed to go
No,
from
they
us to
didn't have the
them.
opportunity to as yet.
Yeah, so I'm not, that's fine, but I'm not in favor of doing that. I'd like to hear, I'd like the public to be able to weigh in on it and what the planning board members would like to say about it.
So by state law, and I'm sorry to interrupt, the actual process is supposed to go,
Here,
the selectmen
there.
are supposed to include it, and then it's supposed to go to the planning
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, the selectmen will pass the articles that they recommend for a town meeting to the,
Well, but there's lots of ones right now on here
Yeah.
that had to have planning board hearings and have already had them.
we do that so we have enough time to discuss them before
Exactly,
the
so,
town meeting.
so it's not necessarily written in stone fact.
And we could,
We've gone either side of that fence.
exactly.
and-
We've done both,
Yeah.
so.
As
So
a-
why don't we,
As a former member of the planning board, the process is pretty straightforward. The planning board has to have a hearing before town meeting. That's the only requirement. There's no time frame before the selectmen
Yeah, that's
get
correct.
the article or not.
Right,
I
it just
remember-
relates to town meeting, not
I
the
remember
warrant.
most articles from the planning board coming before the board over
and
the
I'm
9
not
years
trying,
where
do
they
you
have
mind
not
if
had
we
a
just
hearing.
ask town council on that too? Just,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, sorry to throw it out.
What's the question now?
I also will get the Profile and Courage Award.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the town administrator and the board. On many occasions, we're tempted to think of processes as being linear, where each step is sequential. A happens, then B, then C, then D. In the case of zoning adoption or amendment, that's not the case. You have two concurrent, but not overlapping processes. The process that the Board of Selectmen follows is under Chapter 39, where it has control of the warrant and decides which articles go on the warrant or which ones don't, absent, of course, petitioned articles. With respect to zoning, the Board of Selectmen has the authority to put the zoning bylaws on or not. There is a separate process under Chapter 40A, which calls for planning board review of warrant articles that you put on that pertain to zoning. That review is not triggered until the articles are actually on the warrant, because until they're on the warrant, it could be deemed to be speculative that there ever was going to be an article. So you've got independent jurisdiction. By voting to put it on the warrant or not put it on the warrant, the Board of Selectmen has exercised its jurisdiction, and the alpha and omega of its jurisdiction. It's at an end. At that point, it's on to the planning board, and the planning board can do several things. It can vote in favor, it can vote against, or it can do nothing. The ultimate check that the planning board has on the Board of Selectmen and on the town meeting is that if it does nothing, then the planning board has pocket vetoed the article, because town meeting can't act on an article unless there is a hearing and a recommendation. So that's the dirtiest trick of all. If the planning board decides to vote no, town meeting can still ignore the recommendation and go ahead and approve it. Or obviously, if the planning board votes yes, town meeting can vote yes or no as it chooses. So there are different processes, there are different checks and balances in place. So you can act on this. I think, certainly before you made any recommendations, and this is just an personal observation, before you recommend it or not, you might want to hear what the planning board had to say, bless you. But you're not bound to do that either. Thank you.
I just want to mention one thing. At the time when we did this, we had two other types of businesses that were starting to locate here, that wanted to locate. One was storing outside materials like gravel and stuff like that on a lot. And according to this, your storage, it says, building used for storage and materials, equipment, large and good, furniture, and appliances and other goods. So, that, and the other thing was containers. There was a company that wanted to store containers, and it would have been stacked up containers all over the place. And I didn't think at the time, and I don't think the planning board or anybody else, and by the way, some of the members are still there, I don't think they thought at the time that that was a good thing for our retail areas, along our Route 28 corridor, that other places were better used for that, and not necessarily out on our strip. And that's why it was passed. And I thought it was a good thing at the time. And I remember poor Mary Jane Pillsbury got in a lot of hot water over this, because they tried to blame her for the article that she had nothing to do with. Literally nothing. She left the room, she wasn't involved, she had nothing to do with it. It was promoted by us to the planning board passed it, and it was strictly because of these types of events that were happening, these storage containers, all these storage facilities, everything. We could have had nothing but storage on that strip by now. Would have been filled from one end to the other if we hadn't had this bylaw in place.
Yeah, well, one of the things, though, I think, with regards to, this coming forward so quickly, is the fact that, you know, the market is adjusting to the virus. And what you're seeing is an acceleration of the slow death of retail. Through Amazon, through this, through that, through all the stuff. I mean, Amazon now has fleets of vehicles that will rival FedEx and UPS someday, probably literally someday, like next week someday. That's how fast they're expanding. And so the whole paradigm of what we got out on Cranberry Highway is going to shift. So I think the article was intended to take advantage of what's going on there, get a jump on things, because a lot of the retail environment and locations and things that the ban on the storage places was intended to protect aren't going to be there to protect in 5 years. I think that's kind of what it was sort of anticipating what's going to happen and what we already see with the decline of retail. I mean, we know Wareham Crossing, for example, has problems, you know, now filling the place with stores. You know, who's coming to us to build the next big retail location in Wareham? Because we still got properties where you can throw up big boxes, but nobody's knocking down the doors to do that now. So that was sort of the spirit in which it was offered. I just wanted to get that in, just to say that.
I agree. I know that there's some changes happening.
Yeah.
But I still don't want to see Cranberry Highway loaded with, mulch piles because they're being stored. And guess why? And before they get to their consumers, where they truck them in and out and truck them back and forth to the consumers and stuff. I don't think that's an appropriate use of that particular strip.
Yeah, it says you can't.
And there's not enough restrictions, to make that happen.
Well, it says materials can't be stored outside of the buildings in here. It
Well-
does say that.
Okay, so they could put a building up and store the stuff inside.
mulch inside the building, I
And
suppose.
it's the same thing, it's the same, it's the same baloney, it's still the same thing. I mean, in fact, some materials are better left put inside before, so that they're protected or whatever. But I still think that that's not an appropriate place for
Right.
this kind of stuff, at least not now. Maybe a little later in the future, which I can't see. I mean, it's just a horrible looking thing, it's just not good. Can you imagine a whole bunch of containers out back or someplace, piled up, so that, and you ever see them pile those suckers?
Yeah.
Pile them like 10 high and big rows.
Right
Oh,
down on
that'll be higher than anything on Main Street, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing. I read an article in a national publication yesterday that JCPenney is being considered as a fulfillment center for distribution of goods, as just like Amazon is doing in other locations.
Yeah.
And we have a JCPenney in the mall.
Yeah, well,
So they could be looking to transition at some point.
yeah, they're talking about a fulfillment center, and if it was restricted to that, it might be a work for me. You know what I'm saying? It's just that this is too broad and it just doesn't work for me.
Fair enough.
That's all I'm saying.
He'll probably be back at you in the spring.
You can come back at me again. I'm not 100% against it, because that kind of use is a perfect use for me. I don't have a problem with that.
I think if we're hearing from the board, they'd like to see some things tweaked and could always be brought back.
Exactly.
Including trying to have maybe a hearing before the next warrant
please.
process.
Yeah, nobody's trying to stop you from doing some things that you need to do, but too broad.
Yeah.
Just way too much it's a nice broad brush.
Thank you for the input, though. That's very helpful.
Exactly.
Plenty of broad use.
It's even better than a planning board hearing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. No, really, yeah.
don't tell them that.
Can we actually make decisions?
Ooh, all right then.
All right, so the next article, right, this is the one in the Village District that
Yeah.
apparently the board the planning board has decided not to recommend?
No, they are recommending it if there's a change in the height.
What was the height gonna be?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
What did the height go to?
The height was at 65. Originally, it was
And you went to
reduced
60?
to 60.
And they're okay with that?
And no, the planning board said that they didn't like 60 either, that it would be more appropriate at 50 with a special permit to go to 65.
Special permit, well, that's all right. A special permit, I get
50 to
that.
65?
Yes, a special permit's fine, yeah, I
Well,
guess
now
that's
you
okay.
know, and with apologies in advance to Madam Moderator,
Well, I
that
won't-
this is kind of a bit of a placeholder.
I want you to know, I read the thing in the paper, and that's not the account that I read.
Jim?
I think they voted
It wa-
for or against.
To recommend at this time.
was 4 to
Correct.
1, right? Against?
Yeah, against
Yeah,
at
and
this
I'm not-
time.
So
But
they're
then they
gonna
voted 4
are
to
they gonna
1
revisit it?
to request that we do it, but then the recommendation was different. Did they have 2 votes on this?
Yeah, they had 2 votes. One was
Why don't
to,
you explain that?
Yeah.
the first vote was as is with the article at 60 feet of the height in the bylaw. And they voted against that,
4-1, right?
4 to 1.
Okay.
To recommend against.
And then they took a vote for a modified bylaw with the special permit for increased height above 50 feet from going from 50 to 65. And that one
Okay with that.
passed.
I'm okay with that.
And they like that.
They liked that and they passed it.
Oh, good. All right, all right.
So the
So basically, you're
article-
going to have to
yeah.
come back to the redevelopment authority and discuss this with us and get that language in there in order to obtain a positive vote from the planning board, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Move to include.
May I just make a comment? It needs to be at the request of the Wareham Redevelopment Authority for your attribution.
Well, then should I say it's inserted by the
WRA.
Wareham Board of Selectmen, so Marion doesn't show up and take over our town meeting?
I'm sorry?
Never mind.
I think we know which redevelopment authority it is.
That's the title of it.
WRA,
I'm being
that's all.
specific, and I'm being,
Well, we're also the Wareham Board of Selectmen, but yet that doesn't appear throughout here.
All right, 8:10, move to include.
Okay, motion by the Sergeant at Arms, seconded by Judy. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstain?
I just, I'd like to see the language. I mean, what they actually approved, and I'll put it on there, but it doesn't mean I'm gonna support it on
Yeah,
town
that's
meeting
fine.
floor.
No,
I'm not against, I'm in favor of the entire concept of creating the district, and it's basically organically grown into mixed-use development, and so you're just saying it's okay to do that in this area, and one of my hangups was the height, and a little bit concerned about, I guess it's just your philosophy and how you look at it, more restrictive or less restrictive on your design criteria. So, yeah, I'll go on with it, but, I'll
Yeah.
have to look at it more closely.
Sure, I have a copy here. It's available at the town clerk's office as
Yeah, that's-
well.
That makes it difficult, too. Can we get those online?
They are online as well. They're on the planning board website and the town clerk's.
Thank you. That's great. I think I probably had it. I'm just saying, I had this discussion earlier with Mr. Sullivan. I like things more black and white and less gray. And other people like it more gray.
You just don't like gray.
No.
You're not a fan of gray.
So, but
You ever seen him wear gray?
No, I've never seen him wear gray.
I think I got married in a gray suit, so maybe that explains it all.
I'm gonna get him a,
Oh, there we go. And
Anyhow, go ahead.
truth always comes out.
hey, his hair is gray for crying out loud. I'm gonna get him a gray mask so he can wear it
Alright.
in
There you
here.
go, great flag mask.
All right, I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Special legislation funding for the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust.
There you go.
There's
This,
somebody from the Housing Trust who'd like to speak to this.
Well, I'll speak to it.
Yeah.
Well, we have a committee with a charge, which has no means of financing programs in order to help people out with, and to help the town out with affordable housing issues and trying to promote it moving forward. And this is a shot at trying to create a funding source so that we can have it on hand to expand and not have to wait 6 months or a year to get request funding through town meeting and whatnot. So that's the idea behind it. It's a first shot at it, and don't work, I'd be back, If you
No,
miss the
take it.
first one, you wait, you just get back up there and you swing again. Here we go.
Patrick?
all right, so, I get what they're trying to do. CPA has funds for this that we put out in our taxes all the time. And, this 25% comes directly out of our free cash, just in case anybody doesn't know. Yeah, it does, because that's where all this money rolls to. When you sell property, it rolls to the free cash line. If you take in tax title, it rolls to free cash. That all becomes free cash at the end of the year. So that's gonna cut your free cash dollars down by whatever it happens to be, because that's where it all rolls to, right?
Just not the town-owned the tax title properties, yes, the town-owned, like if we sold a school or something like that, that goes to the sale of real estate fund.
Yeah, but yes.
And also, just, oftentimes, on the tax title takings, it's from individuals either through, passing on, a death in the family, or they just come on hard times, we take the property. And it's a good way to utilize the loss of a property and housing for people, and to use those funds to assist other people who might be in a difficult time. Again, you can't have organizations or committees which have a charge and not have a funding source and scheme for it. And this is a way to do it. And you don't know what properties you may or may not sell and what values they may bring. We're looking for a portion of that in order to do something good for the community.
Well, but you actually do have a funding source, because you could go to CPA and get money.
Again, you have to do it, someone has to come, and you have to say, oh geez, yeah, well, that's a good idea. How much do you want? Okay. And then you have to go to the CPC. And then you ask them for it, and it would be either December or June or whatever. And then they deliberate on it, and then it comes over here to town meeting and the selectmen, and they decide whether they want to put it on the warrant or not. And then you go to town meeting, so we've got a year gone by, and I'm looking to establish some funds in an account that we already have, so that we can have expendable funds and at the same time recapture some funds to refill it.
My understanding is you've got just under 240,000 in the fund right now.
And some of that is already obligated.
How much of that is obligated at this time?
I believe $150,000, and there's another request for possible assistance on senior housing. And we probably would go through a request through CPC on behalf of that, if everything worked out with it, and put a deed restriction on the property for 6 senior housing units, I think 650 square feet each. So,
How much are they looking to hit you up for?
as much as they can get,
Oh, I'm sure.
but,
Our money's better than their money.
well, if you can get a 30 or 40 year, deed restriction for senior affordable, which is this town is dearly in need of,
Yep.
senior affordable. I think it's a good deed, a good deal, and we should be doing that. And I want to be able to fund those things. And like I said, I'm looking to put this on the warrant. If not, we can come back another time and take another whack at it.
Yeah, for me, I couldn't
That's
support
okay.
it, because we're in a lot of trouble with COVID as it is. The budgets are gonna be stretched, and if we think it's bad this year, wait till next year.
I don't agree with that. But
And I just think that this is money that we shouldn't spend, and I move that we do not include it in the warrant.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Alan?
I spent a little bit of time, I actually talked to the town administrator, I don't want to get him in trouble either, about the actual net proceeds that go through. And the dollar amounts, a lot of times when we do this, is very small by the time we get done with paying off fees and everything else. I would rather sit down with Jim and probably come up with something that people may not really like, is to see if we can somehow divert through special act, what we did with the Community Events Committee, and divert some funding on a basis every year that's guaranteed, you know what you got. Because this year, you have no idea what you're gonna get and when, because you might have no property sold in a year or 2 year
yeah, I
period.
agree. Again, this is the first bite of the apple.
I know, I'm
And
just,
there would be more coming in
Yeah,
order
I-
to have funding schemes. So whatever you'd like to do.
I just think we sit down and come up with an actual, where you get guaranteed funding rather than sit there with hit and miss.
And I've already address that too. And I'd spoken with Town Administrator Sullivan about this in the 25%, and he asked me to
Do the
put it on the
net.
net proceeds.
Right.
Only, in which I did. So whatever you would like to do, I know how I'm voting, and you can vote how you like.
And just so they understand why the net, that is, like you talked about, between when we pay off the fire districts and the water, the sewer, and the attorney's fees, if you did 25% of the whole thing, we could actually be in the hole. So Jim was good enough to work and do that amendment, so I wasn't having a heart attack on it. So that was a solid
that.
to the town, so I appreciated that.
Alan?
If you want, if we're gonna do it in net proceeds, the 25% is not gonna kill us one way or the other then. Because I looked at some of the ones and you end up with $50,000, $60,000. And if you were to take, 25% of the gross versus the net, there'd be nothing. Could be upside down, actually. So if we go with a net, I know it's not gonna financially kill us, but
I know
I'd
that.
rather see a permanent funding
That-
source every year.
That'll be coming too.
Yeah. And for myself, I'm kind of in the same place that a majority of the board was on the warehousing article. I'd like to see something a little tighter. I agree with Alan that a more reliable funding source than hit-or-miss sales of real estate and auctions and so on and so forth might be helpful. One thing that I think people maybe not be considering, and this is town-wide, is that between Woodland Cove and if that 150 unit, that they got permitted for gets built, and if the Littleton Drive, project at 92 units, if that gets built out with all those units, I asked the director of planning today, I said, where does that leave us in terms of our 10% affordable housing goal? And he thought that it would be right around 9.8%. Now, so we're pretty close if
Right.
these things happen.
And
And
we-
again, one of them is only a permit, and the other one isn't even a permit yet. So, to some extent, you can say that it's a
Right.
bit speculative.
And here and I understand what you're saying, and we put in 65 units down on Rosebrook, right? And how many units we doing over to the golf course? 180 something?
83.
83? But how many have been put in total in the last 5 years or so?
25.
So 25, 80, so about 120. And none of that,
No, I think he's saying 25 have been completed out of the 83.
That's right,
no, so 83 total?
right.
Yeah.
They're permitted for 83,
Yeah,
but they
so
built
if we get
25.
the 83 and 65, but we have none of that, nothing related to inclusionary or funds to offset inclusionary.
Oh, no,
so we
they-
keep
that's
doing
15
these-
units. That's 15 units further we fall behind when you don't have
That's
the
correct.
inclusionary
And
ones.
that's the same concern I have about these density increases for the Wareham Village article. There's no inclusionary. We're gonna get density increases, and when you get a density increase, there should be some offset to help fund affordable housing and inclusionary zoning. Either you make it in the project, or you put a fund aside for that.
Well, that's
and
that's
we
something
can-
you- that's
and-
something to negotiate in the special permitting process for all this
You know
stuff too.
what? That's all well and good, but if we don't have it as a requirement in zoning, you might as well just kick it down the road.
I hate to throw a monkey wrench into all of this, but if we were 10% today, the state would move the goalpost.
Well, it's,
Well, like they could, but we don't know that
No,
they
they
would.
could, they would, because Wareham is an absolutely prime place to build that kind of project, that kind of stuff. Because its property values in relationship to its market numbers makes it perfect to build. They would move the goalposts in a minute. Because remember, and the Baker-Polito administration wants to see this. They want to see a lot more housing being built. It's
Well,
one of
I-
it's one of their centerpieces, in fact. So if you get to 10%, it ain't gonna matter, because they're just gonna move the goalpost on you.
I don't know about that, because you wonder, the flip side is, okay, here's this community that got to 10%. They've outstripped everybody around them by a factor of 2 or 3. So why would they continue piling on us? Why wouldn't they pat Wareham on the head and say, you guys did a great job? Now, guess what? Marion, Mattapoisett, everywhere else, you got to absorb some of this.
That's not what, it's about units. It has nothing to do about where the units go.
Yeah, you may be right.
It
Alan?
also has to do with politics.
First of all, if we get to 10%, we get a 1-year reprieve after we get to
Exactly.
1%. The problem is that we're also in a region, and the region is well under 10% by a lot.
There
So
you go.
even though we hit 10%, in the second year, we're then open again for anything that comes in. And the other part is, as we've talked about, in the federal market rate with the FMR, which we're in Boston, which will be at least 2 years before we change, there's nobody around us in the Boston rate. The developers, are not going to want to come into Marion or anywhere else because it's much more difficult to get through the thing, and the profitability is so much less.
Well, yeah, their land's more valuable.
I mean, Wareham, again, people have to remember, they buy the land, they sell it to another company builds it. So by the time they're done, they make 20%. But that 20%, say, started at $100. Now, it's just an example, is now 20% of $1,000. And that's how it works. And that's why we're never going to get out of it
Exactly.
until we get out of basically the Boston market.
Absolutely.
And I think, it's
He's
good.
absolutely 100%
It's
correct.
good that we don't want to try to move the affordable housing stuff forward, It is an issue, it's an issue, and we should do what we can to address it.
I agree.
Thank
We have
you.
to
I
fix
agree
the
with
issue.
that, too.
Thank you.
So-
Okay, we have a motion not to put on by Patrick and seconded by Judy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion not to put on, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed to the motion not to put on?
Aye.
Okay, so the motion to not put on carries 3-2, but I think you heard some things that might give you some guidance to come back.
Well, believe me, there's a lot coming down the road, so just get ready, guys.
I know. You're a busy man.
It's not this year, it'll be next year, and if not that, if I get reelected, it'll be that year.
There you go.
Maybe the
Peter, before you start, article on the Tremont Nail, the math is a little bit off. I think both chairs of the Tremont Nail Community Preservation are going to have to just make a correction tomorrow morning.
Can we call those scrivener's errors and just go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, we'll determine
Move
them
to-
to be scrivener's
move to
errors
include-
and,
Second.
okay, motion to approve by Patrick, seconded by Judy, subject to fixing the scrivener's errors. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, it's on, 500. Thank you.
Community
Notation
Preservation
here.
Fund. This is the
Is-
CPC reserve, they gotta do this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a matter of statute, so.
There's a couple of periods in here, there should be commas. Do you think they'll care if we fix that in the final, or should I just leave it?
No, you,
Period, it's a period before 2 zeros. It's a scrivener's error.
Okay, so we can clean it up.
so
All right.
just fix it.
I just, in case it looked different, in the final, I didn't want anybody saying, what'd you do to it?
Move that we approve.
Okay, motion to put on by Judy, seconded by
Second.
Patrick. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. WPCF use of state revolving funds. I'm going to hand this one over to Derek.
I didn't submit this.
Do you know anything about it?
I do. I do. I can tell you what it is. Okay, so they have a bunch of projects that are in the works, and this is to borrow money from the state revolving fund for the purposes of doing these projects. And I think there's a couple of them underway right now. And the rate is extremely cheap, and they've been approved to use that money. So that was the purpose. I don't know that Mr. Sullivan really had any, I don't know if they had conversation with him or not. They probably should have.
When
Yeah,
it comes to money,
They probably should have.
the first time we heard about it was the capital planning meeting when Mr. Foster and myself and,
Well, you know that $9 million in projects that they have, which includes the bed there, the upgrade.
includes, we've already
Approve those.
approved about $3.5 million to that transfer from the retained earnings. They now no longer want to spend that through retained earnings or just a portion of those retained earnings and go back on this. My problem, it's just an article to borrow $9 million for what?
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I mean, this is, as much as I'm the placeholder king of the world, I understand this. This one's just a little concerning. It doesn't list the projects. Did the explanation list the projects?
Did they give their explanation? I think they didn't exactly know how to put it on, and it is actually, I think I was involved in the suggestion to say that they wanted to borrow 9 million. Then they'd have to, obviously, in the article, when they do the motion, they're obviously gonna have to say where they're gonna get it from. But this is an issue that requires bond counsel and everything else, does it
Well,
not?
let's
Bond
let's
counsel,
ask our counsel, who's sitting right here, what would bond
Go for
counsel
it.
do with this? And what do you think of it as a funding article?
Because it has a lot of stuff that's required, it's bonding, you know?
Right.
So I didn't know what we were gonna need exactly.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it's entirely possible, although I can't speak from my own knowledge, that this has been reviewed by counsel for the state revolving fund and that this is exactly the sort of language that they want. I don't know one way or the other. If this were a standard borrowing of the type that we usually do, there would be some issues with it, because without specifying which projects and the amount that would be borrowed for them, it really turns into something more like one of those gift cards that you get at Home Depot or Lowe's, where there's a amount put on the card, and then you
A
can
revolving fund.
spend it for whatever you want off of the shelves. So, you know, typically these sort of prepaid debit card authorizations don't work in municipal finance. I think that this probably, I won't speak for the article, but certainly before any motion could come before town meeting, I think there'd have to be a lot more detail in it, explaining what the projects are, how much for each project. And then you'd probably want to have the council for the state revolving fund actually signing off on it. Because if the council for the state revolving fund doesn't think that this is going to cut the mustard, then you've wasted your time.
Okay.
And this counts against our overall borrowing authorization. Just pulling them up, usually what we've been seeing from IGRs and stuff, you need to have a duration, right? This is for 10 years, 20 years, and I'm sure the revolving fund has a limit on that.
Yeah, there's all
It
kinds of
usually
limits.
actually says the interest rate.
Does set the interest rate. The interest
Yeah.
rate is a set rate.
So,
It's like 1% or something
Yeah.
ridiculous.
so, I mean, it's real, it is a great rate.
Might even be 0, to be honest with you.
Some of them you can get the zero, but the problem is, well, actually, I thought their application was due in October for this.
They got what happened is they got the approval. Apparently, they did file, and they did get the approval to take $9 million. Now they have to have town meeting authorization in order to get the money.
Right, but why wouldn't they just give the package that they gave to the state?
I have no idea
This-
what the
yeah,
deal was.
this-
It
for me,
came
there's
up at the
too many
meeting,
problems.
when I was at their last meeting, and, you know, so there wasn't, it could have used a little more clarification. But, you know, it seems like if you can borrow up to $9 million at 0%, that seems like a logical thing to do, though.
As long as you know what you're gonna
Funding
use
these
it for.
projects anyway.
We know what $3.5 million is being used for, correct?
Yes and no, they want to utilize a portion of this to pay that
Well,
and
the
then return the
3.5,
funds.
yeah, which is the nitrogen reducing.
Right, the
and
head
also
works
the
there,
Settlement tank.
The what?
yeah.
When you say this counts
Nitrogen-
against our
nitrogen
borrowing,
reduction tanks, where they pull out the nitrogen.
Yeah, so for example, especially when we have our,
So,
when we're meeting,
What's the rest
especially
for?
with, I think we were S&P from the last one, they want to know, what are you planning for the future and stuff like that? And we tell them, no, we've done that, you've got the school, there's a potential for a public safety complex, but that doesn't look to be, that have to come, the funding sources we had planned were, before everything went down, would be another mechanism, didn't look like it'd be it'd be full borrowing or something like this. We need to know these things ahead of time. And then this does count against us for our borrowing limit for the town. It isn't just for the sewer, it's for the
Right, and-
town.
I just need to kind of know what that other $5.5 million is for,
Yeah.
specifically, and having discussed it, and,
Well, they had to have, when they submitted the application, which I know they did, they had to have had told them what they were gonna use the money for. The only thing is they were up to 9 million, but like, for instance, a couple of the projects have already come in less, that they're working on right now, have come in for
Right,
less
that's
than they
great.
were originally funded for, so, you know,
When did we receive
look,
this
I'm shocked that
article?
they really should have had conversation with you, Derek, and then they could have worked this out.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from Derek. I'd like to know that from our financial director that the language is going to be satisfactory to
sense. I
bond
mean,
counsel and all these other things. Right now,
I didn't realize that they had no conversation with you at all.
the question right now is almost, would we want to pass this as a placeholder?
No.
Because that's real, because we need more information.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I certainly
That's the
get
only
that.
way I could remotely see supporting it at this time, because it's just not keyed into the project.
It's just that,
We know.
the only problem I
and
have
withdraw
is,
it.
the only problem I have is, maybe we put it on as a placeholder until Derek has some conversation with them, because I would hate to think that you can get some money at 0% interest rate to do the projects that they need to do, and they lose out where they can't get it again. You know what I'm saying?
But
So
this,
maybe you could do some homework
this
after that and figure it
article-
out.
no matter what you do as the placeholder, you have to, when you're borrowing from the SRF loans, you need to establish it in a certain manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, this fails.
You have to establish it up front? I mean, you can't just
Through your
write the,
warrant article.
you
That's
can't
what,
write, fix it in the motion?
look at Gary's article, for the harbor services.
Yeah, but you can't fix it in the motion?
No,
It's been the way we do things all the time.
not for borrowing articles.
Yeah, oh, we do all the time, fix it in the motion. Could council speak to that? I'm just saying that it seems a shame to throw the ability to borrow at whatever, $9 million at 0% to do some of your projects or whatever it is, and I'm not sure that it's 0, it might be 1, but whatever it is, it seems a shame to throw that away and then lose the ability to do it on a permanent basis. If we could put it in as a placeholder and then say, okay, let them work it out. And then Derek could get involved and say, and maybe it doesn't, maybe it falls and we just pass it over. I don't know. But go ahead, counsel, I'm sorry.
No, no. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, you've got three options. I agree that on its face, option number one is don't put it on. I agree that on its face, it fails because it doesn't have the necessary components in it that would allow you to really do anything with it. You have to specify what you're going to do with the money in order to get the money. So option one, don't put it on. Option two, treat it as a placeholder, ask the commissioners to provide more detail, some detail.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, Project A, 3.5, Project B, 2 million, and so on, and improve the form of it so that there wouldn't be any issue when you actually go to borrow it. The third option is put it on the warrant as it is, and then come up with a well-articulated motion that has all the specificity that's absent from this article. You have two issues relating to that. One is whether the moderator would deem that the motion is within the scope of the article. That's the moderator's decision. My personal opinion is that it would be within the scope of the article. The public is being given notice that the commissioners want to borrow $9 million for treatment-related purposes. That's probably good notice. But again, that's the moderator's decision. The second issue is whether bond counsel would say that there was a close enough relationship between the motion and the original article. And, you know, I would lean on the side of saying, yeah, it's not great, but it's probably good enough. It's a policy decision as to whether you want to put this on or not, so I won't comment on that. As between options 2 and option 3, I think the better of the two options would be to treat it as a placeholder, get it dressed up in
Yeah.
proper clothing.
And then let Derek
And
talk to
then-
them, and then
I
maybe
deal
don't
with
Derek,
it
think,
that way.
I think that there's an incorrect idea here. They have not been approved for this. There is no way, because to get the local authorization, the deadline they're talking about, communities must have appropriated the necessary local funds or have committed to a schedule to obtain those funds by October 16th, 2020. This deadline will allow for communities to plan for a town meeting in the fall in time to submit the complete SRF loan application.
Well, how much money have we committed to projects at this point? Are we getting anywhere near 9 million?
it's pretty close to $9 million. That's exactly what the number was. That's why they submitted the amount, yeah.
That we've committed?
They're not,
Oh, they
we're not
wanted to.
committed to them all. We're
No,
not committed to all the
no.
projects. We're only committed to 2
That's
of
correct.
the projects.
Well, how much are those two?
There are others.
I think Peter Allen's been trying to.
Yeah, go ahead, Ellen. Sorry.
The capital projects that are in question were approved by town meeting, actually.
Yes, they were.
And I believe the 9 million they're asking for, I think the actual number is actually going to be a little less than that they need. But I'm
So
not sure
they-
how that affects anything.
How could they have already approved this from town meeting for 9 million? We've got a 3.5 million, we know. They don't have, their whole budget's 6.5, 7 million.
I understand. I'm just saying that's the information I had got, that the projects they had were at the town meeting, they were going to borrow the money rather than take it from another place, as you mentioned. I don't have the details of what they have in total.
Yeah, I don't want to get them in trouble, but I think this is a complete disaster.
Well, like I say, why can't we just throw it in there as a placeholder for now?
It's-
And then let
it's
you
another
work it out,
reason-
Derek. Maybe you come back and say, you know what, it is gonna work out. Maybe you come back and say, no, this is a disaster, and we just pass it over.
It's another reason why this format's not working.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I will tell you, it's not.
Okay.
No.
I hate to have
And
to
now
go,
we're going to put the town on the hook for this.
Yeah.
Because it's not the WPCF plant at the end of the day.
It's the town.
It's the town.
Judy?
Yeah,
If they can't pay or they screw it up, it's the town that covers it.
Judy?
yes, thank you. I'm very uncomfortable with a very unstructured request here. And in fairness, we actually turned down
That's not an article.
a couple of things that could have been heard, that, I'm looking at the amend the zoning bylaw to allow storage facilities, and the other one, wherever, that could have been put in and could have had a planning board hearing. So, if we're going to knock those off, then we have to be consistent and not put this one in.
It's just, why is there nobody here to explain this to us?
I have that as a real issue, and you said before you started speaking 10 minutes ago that the first time you had heard about this was at the capital planning meeting, which was a week ago, maybe?
Yeah, my weeks are blending, so.
Look, I don't care. We don't have to put it on at all. It's up to you guys. But I'm just saying that an opportunity may be here to borrow $9 million at a very short amount of money. What's the difference between 0 and 3% on $9 million over whatever period it is? It's probably a bunch of money. So it's a good savings for the town overall if it's something we're paying for anyway. But if, that's why I wanted to give Derek the opportunity. If he doesn't want the opportunity, that's fine with me.
We can try it. I have to tell you, I don't.
I just don't wanna see you
approved
lose
something
out.
we brought to town meeting, approved something for 3.5 million. They wanted it from their retained earnings.
Right.
Had to be that way and stuff. Now, 6 months later, no, we don't want it that way. We want to pay it a different way. The message we're sending to town meeting and for the residents is not a very good one.
I move to not approve it.
It's
for
fine with me.
inclusion.
It's up to you. I mean, like I said, if you don't like it, it's fine with
I
me.
mean, I will go along. I'm a little,
I'm kind of cautious about this, too. Motion by Judy,
Yes, to not include it.
I just know what we're going to hear is exactly what Patrick said.
Seconding,
That
Alan?
we,
just as a comment, we pay Mr. Sullivan to do a particular job, and on the financial end, he's been critical in getting this town to the point we're at, where we're no longer on the DOR watch list and everything else. And I have a hard time going against his recommendation, simply because he hasn't been wrong yet. And if he is, we just give him a decrease in his pay.
The last
Very
thing
well
I
said.
want to do, and I'm sorry if you don't mind the last thing I want to do is, make anyone or ratepayers, the sewer department, pay any more money than they have to.
Yep.
It seems like this has been happening more and more from this department, so maybe the shame's on me. Maybe I don't know, but it's,
We understand.
I know they've been trying to go for this before and stuff like that, so if you want to give it a try, give it a try. I'll
No,
make it work.
Derek,
No.
all of us support you 100%, and if you think it's something, whatever, nobody's not gonna go along with you here. I don't think any one of us is not gonna go along with you. I was just trying to give you the opportunity to maybe work it out. I was thinking, from your point of view, and I know how you are, it's like, well, if I can get some money, cheap money or free money, maybe it works for me, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, because all I know is what they told me at the thing, and I don't know what the conversations were. I just know what I heard at the meeting, and that's all I have to go by. And if you have some other knowledge, which you seem to have, then that's fine. It's not a problem.
I am worried about it. I don't think it looks that well. We can try and make it work if it's going, and I'll meet with them. We'll do whatever, because I know this is the times of the essence. If they don't get this
I
one
think this
in,
is
they miss.
where, we talked about having a financial person down at that department, and I think that's gonna have to happen, Derek. We're just gonna have to get somebody down there.
Aren't we paying someone,
Do
that stuff
well,
now?
we had, but we lost somebody along the way.
we're paying someone
But
now?
we're going to need somebody who can knows finances down there. And technically speaking, you have the ultimate finance oversight on that department anyway.
Right, and we've got the finance director in, we've got a great finance director. And even after we brought this up, that there was issues at the capital planning committee, nothing came back.
Well, then that's their, then that's their
I will-
problem.
That's
Then that's
on
their
them for not
So
providing
if you
adequate
want to put it
information
on,
if we don't put it on.
I will work, we'll try and clean this up, make it work as best as possible, see if
No.
this
Well,
will
let's
pass
just-
muster
No,
with the
no,
SRF.
No.
See what the vote gets us. Let's,
No, we won't put it on. I don't, I'm not,
we
I
have a
don't
motion
even,
not to put it on by Judy and seconded by Alan.
that's fine.
Are we ready?
Yes.
Yeah,
All in favor of the motion not to put it on, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed to the motion not to put it on? Abstain?
Well, usually you do discussion after the second, but that's okay.
Oh, we've been yapping the whole time.
Yeah, I was being polite.
I think we've
Yeah.
chewed this one in a mush, Jim.
No, that's
No,
all
but,
right.
but I just wish that, I think you need to get more involved. You need to get the financial director more involved down there so that this stuff doesn't come up and doesn't happen.
Judy?
Whatever you gotta do, Derek, you're gonna have to do it. And I don't
honestly,
care what he says down there, it doesn't matter whether it's him or the committee or whatever. I mean, you're still, in my opinion, the way we wrote it and we added it, if you remember right, that you're in charge of the financial situation down there. And, you're just gonna have to tell them what they gotta do and stop it.
If you'll, I know you just took the vote, if you want, and I'm not saying if you want it, I know what's going to be thrown in our faces
Okay?
on this one.
Yeah. I think we need some
No,
consistency
I
here.
think we're right. I think we're right the way we voted it.
Okay. Judy?
I had asked a couple of weeks ago that you set up an appointment to meet with the sewer commissioners. I don't know whether you have scheduled that or not. Not that I want to get yelled at by them, but it seems to me that communication between an elected board that is asking for an enormous amount of money that is going to impact our bond rating, among other things, should be in closer communication with the town administrator.
I
And
agree.
certainly with our director of finance.
So, let me just, well, they're an enterprise fund and they're self-funding. So, my only concern is, and I know Mr. Sullivan oversees their finances, they're allowed to put in articles for funding and request them. It would have been nice if they'd come, and even if they speak with Mr. Sullivan and capital planning, I would like to know, as a select board, what the money's specifically for. And, you know, to me, whether Mr. Sullivan says it's great, or the sewer commission or capital planning, I'd like to see what it's gonna be spent for. And that's my only real issue with this. I mean, if it came in and there was a listing of this project, it's gonna do this, then I'd probably be able to support it.
Yeah, I didn't see it. Well, I've been trying to look for the article. I don't know. I didn't
Oh.
see one from Cassie, what it would say.
Did
Where
you
it
look at
say
the
the-
email from Cassie?
I'm looking for Cassie for,
I think the article is just what you see right there. I think I saw it. I don't think it's anything other than what you see.
I've got the packet, the backup stuff.
there's no way Sandy submitted this as an article.
No, it's definitely Sandy. Sandy wrote the thing to submit it. We put she said, we didn't know what to put in it, so we kind of made it pretty broad on purpose.
She probably
Hoping
did
that they'd fix it in the motion,
She probably did these this morning, because I know she turned in articles for everybody. The bottom line is you have the chair, and I think the clerk for for the sewer commissioners on the capital planning.
Well, I'll read the explanation. I mean, we already took the vote, but if we want to
The
reconsider, we
information
still
should have
can.
gone
Yeah,
back
do you
and
have
forth.
it on
I
there?
do.
Would that?
Yeah, here it is. It's got the article to see, blah, 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 what we have in front of us.
That should have been here.
Then we have the motion, which says, I move that the town vote to allow the WPCF to borrow $9 million from the state revolving fund for town meeting-approved capital plant improvements. And so, again, the motion they have doesn't get into the specificity that we're looking
It's
for.
got to, though.
The explanation,
Yeah,
the state revolving fund offers affordable loan options to cities and towns to improve water supply infrastructure and drinking water safety, and to help them to comply with federal and state water quality requirements that deal with wastewater treatment plants and collection systems, while addressing issues such as watershed management priorities, stormwater management, and green infrastructure. Additionally, the state revolving fund supplies financial assistance to address communities with septic system problems. This borrowing authorization is necessary in order for us to apply for a loan from the SRF funding.
So they haven't been
still
granted
nebulous.
it. They're applying for
Yeah,
it.
it's still nebulous in terms of what the specifics are.
Yeah.
Nothing changes.
No, but I just wanted you to hear what they had sent, just in case anybody thought differently, so.
So they're saying that projects have already been approved, so we've already allocated the funding for them. So this is redoing them as another format of funding?
Either way,
Derek,
we don't have enough information. We've already voted. Let's just move on.
Yeah, there's not much we can do about this.
Yeah, okay.
So we know that the SRF doesn't do engineering for some of, they won't
No, it
pay for
doesn't.
the engineering, right?
Nope.
Won't pay for engineering, so they've started on some of them, but I guess it's when they want to do the shovel in the ground or something.
Yeah, shovel-ready projects.
All right. Okay, well,
Hey, here's what
sorry,
it
but
is.
maybe
It'll have
next
to-
meeting there'll be a similar
They want to do it,
program.
it'll have to come around next time, and they'll have to have more conversation with you and
Yeah.
deal with it. I mean, there's a lot of money to be dealt with, not to talk to their financial officer, which is you.
We told Jimmy and Sandy about the issues at the capital planning. I mean, I don't know if you were there, Alan,
Can't answer for
You
'em.
go to their meetings, right?
the
Sewer commissioners
no,
meetings?
I
Or
do
you
not. No.
I'll be sleeping in the garage tonight, don't worry.
Okay.
So,
You got
You
a
know.
bed in there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, moving on. Amendments to Town Charter, Chart 1. I'll turn this over to Judy. Let's briefly explain what the process is. I'm sure everybody's taken a look at it, but just for the public's knowledge of how this is going to be presented at town meeting, why don't you give us an overview?
Okay, this, Chart 1 and Chart 2 are on file with the town clerk, as is the entire proposed new charter, as is an explanation for Chart 1 and Chart 2. The Chart 1 article is editorial changes, like capital letters, inverting word orders, taking something that is in a run-on paragraph and making bullet item presentations. So there are no substantive changes in Chart 1, or this, I will call it Article 1, which has been recommended by previously known as the Charter Review Committee, now known as the Charter Review Group. And the second article, which, may I speak to the second article as well?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. The second article is the substantive changes that have been winnowed down and are included in a second article. Excuse me. They are basically grouped in subcategories. Some definitions in the charter have been added or omitted. Transitional provisions covers things that have happened in the past and the charter document itself was never caught up. For instance, the sewer commissioners are elected officials and they don't appear in the charter as elected officials. So that would be a substantive change. Capital planning, the change there is to put the director of finance on that committee rather than the town accountant. That was something that was discussed with the town administrator, as well as town council. Mr. Foster goes to all of the meetings, and really capital planning is a planning function, not an accounting function. The sewer, the sections for the sewer include moving them into elected officials, which should have happened when they became that. And it also puts the appointment of the sewer superintendent under the division, under Mr. Sullivan's, the town administrator's appointment. The assessors committee, the assessors section was entirely written to bring it up to snuff in terms of being reflective of what the law is. It was written by our chief assessor. Charter changes having to do with there are 3 or 4 sections, and they really have to do with being very specific and making sure that the public can understand what it is that is in there. The town clerk, the Charter Review Group is recommending that that become an appointed position in line with what about 1/3 of the Commonwealth towns have done so far and are in the process of doing. That change is totally supported by our town clerk. Town administrator, there are some, I will call them tweaks about who he appoints, and one of them would include the town clerk, and one of them would include the sewer superintendent. Say that one fast 6 times. The town administrator already appoints every member of the sewer division except for the superintendent. And then the road commissioners is an article that was actually prepared way back for the April town meeting that ended up being a June town meeting. When the group was reviewing the road commissioner section in the charter, it believed that it didn't really belong in the charter. So the group brought that to this board, and the members said, well, why don't we take it back? So,
No, go ahead.
yeah. So,
I didn't say that.
some people did. So there were, that's there because there are now 2 groups of people who are in charge of the roads of the town. And we think that it was, the road commissioners were created 10 years ago, somewhat along the line of the sewer commissioners in terms of, you know, things need to get done and they need to get done well. So those are the large changes. And the substance, the way the articles have been written, the first one should be fairly self-evident, but the second one was put together that way so that people would understand that different sections deal specifically with those subsections, if you will, or those topics.
Yeah. The other thing to this is that, you know, Judy and I met with the moderator to go over this because how this was going to be presented at town meeting came to mind. And so, you know, Chart 1 is just basically sort of the Scrivener kind of stuff that's getting cleaned up and so on and so forth. There wasn't seen a need to break that out into individual pieces because we figured that one could be one motion, one discussion, one vote. And unless, somebody found something and wanted to make an amendment to one little thing or this, that, and the other thing, by and large, it would be something that could be accepted.
Which is the one that has select board in it?
That one.
That's the second part, but here's the thing. All we're doing tonight is voting to put these on.
I know that.
Part of the logic in breaking these out into categories wasn't just for town meeting, but it was for us.
Yeah.
So that we could vote to put the article on, if we so choose, then we come back to it. And for example, if you don't like a certain thing, you don't have to vote for it. If you don't like a certain thing, you don't have to vote for it. So, if any of us don't like something, we don't have to vote to recommend it.
Right.
So that's why it was broken out the way it was, to give us an opportunity to weigh in. And, when we do our recommendations, that's when we're going to be going down into these subcategories. If that makes sense to the board.
I'm okay with it. The only thing I don't like is I don't like that whole select board thing. Other than that, I have no problem with any of this stuff. Look, they call it humankind now, right? A humankind? Well, it's man and human, just in case you didn't know. It's just, instead of mankind, it's humankind. There's still man in there. Maybe we ought to get rid of that. What do we call ourselves? Something else? The guy, how about the things that came out of the ocean, or whatever? I mean, I just think it's the stupidest thing in the
Amoeba-kind.
whole world. I don't think mankind, or when they talk about selectmen or anything else, I don't think it meant to be sexist in any way when it was written. I don't think anybody had any inkling to do that, and I can't understand people having bad feelings about it. But whatever it is, and I'll vote for it. I mean, if it's got to be that way, I guess I'm a dinosaur. I got to move on with it. I just don't like it.
Okay, any other dinosaurs want to weigh in at this point?
Any other
Okay,
dime store?
I'll ask this dinosaur.
Unfortunately, when all these things were basically written, men were the only ones allowed to do anything. Women didn't have the right to vote or anything. So these things were written because men were the only one that could vote and do things.
Remember, it is his story.
Yes.
History,
But
history.
mankind goes back to way, 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 way back to,
It goes back a long time.
yeah, way back before women, before we can even talk about today's kind of thing. We're talking back Roman days and
thing.
Egypt and all that.
And the
They
Greeks
talked
and
about
everything else.
mankind, so,
My other point,
Okay, you're
It's-
getting back closer to the dinosaurs over there.
well, but, no, dinosaurs were millions of years ago, buddy. You can't get the dinosaurs, weren't that close.
my other point is that the Massachusetts General Law, as of today, still
Says.
refers to us as selectmen. They haven't changed anything. Mass Municipal Association in January voted to change their Selectmen's Association to the Mass Select Board Association. But until the state gets up and actually does something themselves, we're still selectmen as far as Mass General Law.
Yeah, well, we can pass it,
Like I say, I'm gonna vote for it, because, I'm not gonna make a stupid fight like that. I just think
The gender
that people are
neutrality.
gonna have to stop. Part of this whole thing that he was talking about is what's going on, is all of this stuff where they're dividing everybody, changing all the things, doing everything else. They're working us towards a civil war, and frankly, I just don't want to be here. I hate to see what's gonna happen to my poor kids in the civil war that's coming, because they really are. They're really separating us. Alan's absolutely right. Jim's absolutely right. They're leading us down the path to a civil war.
Okay. Jim,
I can-
any thoughts?
But what?
Any of it?
How about motioning to put it on the warrant?
What are we working on? Chart one?
One.
Yeah, we'll
I
start with
just
one and then
explained
two.
both of them as a courtesy.
Move to include chart one.
Second.
Okay, motion to include chart one by Patrick, seconded by Jim. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 500.
Move to include chart two.
Second.
Okay, motion to include chart two by Patrick, seconded by Alan. Anything else on that? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Aye.
Which is your aye?
Opposed.
You're opposed, so that goes on 410.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah, there's a lot of some changes in there I don't agree with.
Really? Okay. Anyone particular you can point to?
Yeah, a number of them. I think some of the appointments of upper-level employees, the select board, selectmen, select board,
Yeah.
should be notified before the offer is made, and we should really take a look at who the candidates are. They're upper-level employees. They work under town administrator, but they're in key positions, and I think we should have say on that. As far as the employees of, who are under the director's level, you know, that's all right that they do it. But it is our responsibility at this point in time to take the time to look at the applicants if we choose to, which I do, because I like to know what's going on and what the process is, and do we have what the review process is for hiring and whatnot. And those are good things to know in our position, you know, what the processes actually are. Do we have a hiring policy and what they are?
You know, I can understand why you don't want to surrender that right.
And so
Well,
it's...
department heads, we don't surrender at all. We
Well,
we
No,
still
that's
have them.
not, that's not part of the
It's
recommendation.
after the fact.
Okay.
Like now, it's after the offer.
Yeah, it's the way it is. It's after they're.
So, and if you don't do anything in 15 days, so that's one of them. I don't agree with doing where the road commissioners, I think they have a function.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know, it's who we appoint to the board, and you can restructure the board. The town clerk, I don't have any trouble making them appointed, but again, I would like to see the selectmen having some say in the selection process on that. So, and on the publication, you know, we put it in the newspaper. In another 10, 15 years, I agree 100%. Right now, a lot of people are still, they're not quite up to the technological age.
Can I just,
You can say whatever you want. Janice.
yeah, the publication sentence comes out because media is covered several different ways within the body of the recommendations.
And we're going to have newspaper? Is it going to be
Media
newspapers?
includes newspaper.
Yeah, I thought I read part of there where it wouldn't be done in the newspaper. I'll look at it again. So,
All right.
so
And one of the
that's why.
reasons, you know, one of the reasons, and in the discussions with the moderator, is this is set up so that if, in her discretion at town meeting, she chooses to divide the question, it's already been divided for
already been
her. She can
divided.
call for separate
Yeah.
votes on each of these categories.
And then,
Just as,
I
just
just
as
say,
we're,
hey-
just as obviously we're gonna do for the recommendations, and we're gonna have some votes that might be unanimous, and we're gonna have some votes that are gonna be divided, and that's, you know, part of the whole process here. So everybody's gonna get their chance to weigh in, just as you two gentlemen have in the negative
Yeah,
on
yeah,
a
yeah.
couple of these things tonight, and town meeting's gonna get to do the same, because this is our foundational document, and there needs to be a fair amount of
I was
process.
asked why, so I explained it. Otherwise, I would have just stuck with no.
No, that's fine.
There you go.
No, but I
You
wanted to
asked,
hear.
you
I
got
wanted to hear what he said. I wanted to know. I
well,
wanted to know
you-
what you said.
You'll get to hear it again in the recommendations. Alan?
My philosophy has been from day one, since I did the charter review 10 years ago, that anything the charter review committee/group brings out should come to town meeting, let the town actually vote on it. I think this is something that we really should not be, you know, and we haven't, you know, stop it from going to town meeting. I mean, there's certain things I agree with, there's certain things I don't agree with, but the bottom line is I just cannot, in my own philosophy, sit there and restrict anything going to town meeting when it comes to a charter review.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for that.
All right, so we got the motion for
It's done.
shot two, right?
Yep,
You gonna take the
done.
vote?
That was, I took the
Already
vote.
been
He
done.
he already did it.
Okay.
Town meeting endorsement of 2020 master.
Move to
Move to
adopt.
include,
Oh, yeah, move to include, so I'll second it.
okay.
Okay, motion to include by Patrick, seconded by Judy. This was on the spring one, so
Yep.
it's coming back. Any questions about it?
No,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yep.
Opposed, abstained, 500 for that one.
Establish solid waste. I move we include it.
second.
Motion to include by Patrick, seconded by Judy, but let's hear from our town administrator and refuse expert
I
on this
didn't
one.
handle this one. I guess.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to do some damage control on a previous article that wasn't included to see how we can maybe manage it. So I apologize about walking out
No,
for a
it's
little
okay.
bit. For the rest of the board,
This is a placeholder for Derek.
yeah, this is essentially a place. Jim, do you mind passing this down?
No, I don't.
Is this the solid waste?
Yeah, we're establishing a solid waste fee, but
Revolving
it
fund.
really should be done looking at it as a bylaw. But that's, we have a draft bylaw, and I'm going to tell you, Mr. Muniz has not reviewed, or Selectman Muniz has not reviewed or approved this. So this is just, there's some things that still need to be amended in here, but we need to establish the whole process of it, how we get the funding. And when Jim and I were talking about this before, he pointed that out. And basically, we're trying to figure out how to set it all up, including definitions, and really doing it as a bylaw. And one of the things in looking at is it looks like, I looked at some other communities. I pulled this off of Swansea, and MGL Chapter 44, Section 28C allows for establishing these fees. And in here, you'll see we list the curbside and the convenience. I put transfer/convenience center until, sort of the,
Convenience.
yeah, because it's convenient.
You go when you want to.
What's that?
You go when you want
That's
to.
all right. So this is just, what you have is essentially the placeholder to back this up. This bylaw needs to just be tweaked a little bit more, and including where you'd insert it in the warrant. Judy, keep on going,
No, I'm just wondering why mine is yellow and nobody else's is.
because you're looking at the MGL.
I'm just not where you are?
Mine's
Okay.
yellow.
Because you're
Got it.
special.
So,
Got lots of yellow.
Pass it
Got
I got yellow.
pages and pages of yellow.
the yellow in there in the MGL chapter, in the MGL section, the highlighted portion in the yellow is what pertains to solid waste.
Okay.
So, I'd
So in a
ask that we,
nutshell, what is it that you're proposing?
proposing that we're going to have to, one way or the other, we're going to have to pay for, establish a way to pay for and have fees. So
Okay.
this is setting it up, so we'd have a town-wide
Structure.
So we'll
system.
be able to move forward,
Yeah,
period.
We're running out of time.
yeah,
I'm
It's
just
fine.
asking.
that was nice and succinct, Jim, thank you.
Well, it's,
Again, I think I made a motion to include, so.
I did too.
You did?
Oh, you did?
Any,
You did, and I did.
And you seconded?
Yeah.
right. It was
Okay.
a motion by Patrick, second by Judy. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Now we got one-
Okay, and then we go to the revolving account that's gonna take all of these nice fees that we charge in the preceding article and put them somewhere.
Yeah, we've already established it, but I basically have pulling it out, putting this one back in, and I put I bolded the sections that were changed from what the other one was, including the spending limit up to 2.5 million. You're allowed to, with the new missile modernization, you're allowed to have higher amounts for
Move
the
to
for the
include.
ceiling.
you
Second?
need it.
Right.
You need
So-
that much.
So,
Okay, motion to
Judy,
include by
Judy.
Judy, seconded by Patrick.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Go ahead, I'll catch up with him after.
Okay. Naming of the new elementary school located at 63 Minot Ave. Mr. Flaherty et al. Did submit another petition article, so right now this is duplicative, and so I would ask that this be yanked.
I'll move
My
that we,
comment was on this particular one here, we try to do a good deed and put it on there. I always remind everybody, no good deed goes unpunished. And he put a second article in it, in his note was he wanted to include it with the first one, which you can't do. So I made the motion originally to include it, and I'd like to reverse my motion to not include it now.
I'll
Okay, motion made by Alan, second.
I'll second that.
I don't care.
Okay, so it's a motion to remove by Alan, and a second by Patrick.
That's the prior
Right,
Yep.
petition, not the
Yeah.
current one.
right.
Okay.
So we're gonna remove ours and leave his, because we have to leave his anyway.
Well, technically,
isn't even on
technically,
here.
it was his, but we put it on without
Right.
going through
His
the
isn't even
process.
on here yet.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Next
this is a
page.
dedicated page, I
Page
think, for
10.
the petition article.
What's it, oh, is it on a separate page somewhere that I'm missing?
So the one that says prior
Yeah.
petition submitted is the one we're taking out.
Yeah, because we
Yep.
thought we'd
Got a
would make
motion
life
to
easy for
reconsider.
them.
Can you
Got a
vote that
motion
way?
to move or
I don't see one.
reconsider?
It's right here, hon.
Right here, Patrick.
Well, I don't know if
Right
it needs a
here.
motion to reconsider.
The first one is
We
right
haven't closed the
here.
warrant yet. But we
Oh, I see
motion
it.
to
Okay,
remove.
I got it, yeah.
Rich, what's the appropriate motion here? Motion to remove? We put it on last week. Motion to strike?
Sorry.
So you've made a
Strike.
motion to strike and seconded by
Right,
Judy.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, it is struck.
And we don't have to vote on the next one because it's automatic.
They both
Right,
are.
the next one is
The both of
petition
them are
articles, so
automatic.
that goes on, just for the record. Naming of the new elementary school located at 63 Minot Ave, Wareham. To see if the town will vote to name the new elementary school currently under construction at 63 Minot Ave and scheduled to open in January 2022 as the, quote, Wareham Elementary School, unquote, inserted by Michael S. Flaherty et al. Town meeting had previously, through the title of a warrant article, named it the Deacos School at Minot Forest, so that's what the change being sought is. The next article is the ban of sale on nips, and I'll just read it into the record. See if the town will vote to adopt the following ban on the sale of miniature single-use containers for alcoholic beverages as a general bylaw, and to insert into the Wareham Town Bylaw, Division 13, Article 1, the sale of alcoholic beverages in containers less than or equal to 100 milliliters is prohibited within the town of Wareham effective November 1st, 2021, or to take any action relative thereto. So this is on by operational law.
Yeah.
The petitioner will be invited to come and explain the
I don't have a
article.
problem with them trying to do this, but I don't think it's going to get through.
There are 14 certified signatures on that one, and there are 15 on the elementary
I
school
think they'll
petition.
spit it right back at us.
What's that, the
The
townspeople?
nip thing, yeah, I think that,
It's
the,
up in the air right now because.
Doesn't matter, as
Yeah,
long
yeah.
as they get the
Yeah,
10,
it's,
other
they have their
towns have,
numbers.
done the same thing just
Yeah,
recently.
it's
yeah,
already
I know, a
certified.
lot of the towns are
So it's
trying
on
it,
there. We don't
but
have a
it's
choice
like
anyhow.
throwing shit against the wall, you know?
Putting pressure on the state.
Some might stick and some doesn't.
Goes on.
Snowballs
Make
tend to
life-
fall off.
Actually,
Making
some
life easy
towns
for
have,
Ralph.
a couple of towns down the Cape have banned the sale of water in plastic bottles.
Yeah, that's a very difficult one to enforce for the
Yeah,
town,
that's
though.
not all that, you can say whatever you want,
Go
but
over to,
you can try all this stuff, but when it gets to the AG, sometimes
Oh,
it just,
banning
sometimes
water
it falls
bottles.
out of the sky like,
they'll throw the-
Banning water bottles is a lot easier than banning nip bottles,
Yeah,
for the simple
because-
reason that there's a lot more money in booze than water.
well, and you
And,
know, and believe it or not, if
pretty
you went
much-
around to our liquor stores, they would tell you it's probably their biggest seller.
It is.
the biggest size, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
their biggest seller, is the nips.
Oh, yeah, yeah. If a bunch of towns pass something like this, you can bet they're gonna litigate it.
It's a huge loss in revenue to them. It's more,
Number one.
it's more akin to when we raised the cigarette thing to 21, but worse.
Well, they're easy to dispose of, you just whack them down and throw them out.
You throw them on the street, yeah, that's what everybody does with them.
Can I move to close?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
You move to what?
I would,
Second, Judy.
I would,
The
I
one-
would request the courtesy of the board to take up the,
Reconsider?
reconsider the sewer article.
Tell us why.
I've been speaking to the chairman of the sewer commissioner, the chairman of the finance committee, and the sewer superintendent. They did give us the numbers, and it is what had been previously passed at a town meeting. And the breakdown is the denitrification filters at $2 million. The equalization basins for $2.5 million. C Street, which was 1 million, and then the C Street, 1 million. And then the lagoon coverings, the 3.5 million, which totals up at $9 million. I don't think this is the cleanest article. I would respectfully request that you, what do we gotta do?
We'd have to reverse our vote.
Reverse it, put it on, also give me just a little bit of time in the morning and tonight to ask them to get some more information potentially on that. In the meanwhile, go see if, what we can do to, I'm basically gonna copy some other SRF borrowing articles from other towns and see if I can clean it up.
Okay.
Okay.
Reconsider?
If
What
you don't
if-
mind, yeah, that's what I'm requesting of the board.
Reconsider?
Yes, please.
So may.
We'll start with a motion to reconsider, but one thing is, that's bothered me, and one way to lock it into these projects that you've described, that the money's been allocated to already, is to simply add the word prior between for and town meeting approved capital plant improvements.
Okay.
I'd be a lot more comfortable with an article that related to prior approved town meeting stuff.
Do you want to list those? What
Yes.
you just read off?
Is that all on the list of priors,
Yeah.
town
Yeah.
meeting approvals?
Yeah.
Okay,
That was
so
We
put prior in
discussed
there,
them.
I don't have any
know if we
problem with that.
passed them, we discussed them, but
I think we can amend the article as submitted by somebody else.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
I mean, and I'm going to try and
Is this a
make
new
this
article
work.
submitted by the town administrator?
So Jim, do you move reconsideration?
I do.
I second.
Yeah. So.
Peter, I'll second reconsideration.
Okay, motion by Jim to reconsider, seconded by Patrick. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. It is now reconsidered.
Motion to add to the warrant.
With the
With-
caveat
with the
that the word
caveat.
prior is inserted to it.
Yeah.
And.
There may be a couple others because I
There-
kind of want some
And I want
rescission
the
language.
With the possibility of some
Town meeting
scribners.
Approved
Yeah,
projects.
prior town meeting approval, and also the list of the
Prior
projects
plus
that you
list of
just,
projects
yeah,
and amounts.
And the scribners, whatever scribners are in there can be
there are no
corrected.
scriveners on this
All
one.
right.
And
Thank you.
proper
Oh, we don't know that.
Oh, there will be.
There will be.
There will be some scribners,
There's going to
trust
be
me.
scrivenered and scribbled, and you wouldn't believe.
Exactly. There's
Ask
going to be
Pat-
some,
Ask
gonna be
Patty to
some
try and type
scribblers.
what she sees when I write.
there will be scribners, I guarantee
Just
it.
quick through you, Mr. Chair, to the
You can't see 'em
town
right now,
attorney. Does
Judy,
that-
they're
everything
hidden.
sound good to you?
Sound better?
All right, thank you.
What?
Okay. We're just checking with Rich to make sure it's okay.
Okay.
Jim asked if it was good with him, and he said yes. I said, does this sound better? And I got a thumbs
You all right?
up, so
And Rich gave a single digit.
Richie gave a single digit, thumbs up.
Thumbs up on that.
All right, man.
it's a good single digit. Alan?
Do we want to add an SRF, regulation requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try and get whatever they need for that.
Just
so.
for the, for tonight, just so we put it in there that we know we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Yep, so
You
it
got
would
that,
be
Mr.
adding the
Whiteside?
word prior, the list of
Prior,
the
the
projects,
list of the,
and the
SRF.
SRF.
Okay.
SRF requirements.
Okay, so
That way, if they reject it, it's on me now, so that's good.
we have a motion to add.
Yep.
Second,
Okay, Patrick, motion to add, seconded by Judy. Any further discussion? Alan?
I can sleep in my own bed tonight.
Is that a good thing?
Woo!
Hasn't happened in 20-plus years.
All right, then. All in favor, before we get in more trouble, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, 500. Okay, so that
Motion to
goes
close
on.
the warrant.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion before us to close the warrant by Patrick, seconded by Judy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. So it is done.
I must have your
Now,
signatures now.
it's
Yep.
20 minutes past, and you got a lot of speed to
for
put
doing
on,
that.
buddy. Let's get motoring.
Well, we don't have much more to do.
Just what they were and the cost.
Yep. Okay, let's go back to the COVID-19 update. You had nothing. Refuse update, do we have anything new and different on that, Jim?
Meeting tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
And
not
you've heard,
9. At least that's what they sent me. Maybe they sent me a special one. Over in Carver, in Town Hall, upstairs, not downstairs. That's a CMW meeting. Reached out to the executive director, had some discussion about when and if we continue the district as the process of operation of the transfer station. That looks like the mode will be going. And also a discussion with Mr. Sullivan. We both feel that's the best, to our advantage to do that. So hopefully things can work out with the withdrawal of Marion and the continuation of the district between the two towns to operate Rochester for whatever period of time and give us an opportunity to get our feet on the ground related to the curbside pickup and transition, and also run the transfer station. We did discuss briefly fees and structure, but I don't think we're at a point we really want to discuss that. We're still finessing it. And hopefully, nobody's going to be happy. Well, some people will be happy because they'd be paying less for curbside. But anybody who used the transfer station, is a reality that you got to cover the cost of operation, which we never had to do before. So that's where we're at, and to be continued. Thank you.
Thank
Yo.
you.
My grandfather signed it.
That takes care of that. Let's see, so we're done with the town, anybody got any 48-hour business? Alan?
No.
Thank you.
Patrick?
No.
Judy? Jim?
New.
Okay, I don't have any either. Town administrators report?
Good. No, let's go.
Liaison reports. Start with the star of the show. Alan, go ahead.
I'll do this as quickly as I can. Everybody's getting tired. The board had asked me to reach out to different cities, municipalities, basically, in the southeast region, at least, about 70 different communities total, on what capital is. There was no consensus when I went through about 40-some of them. Everybody was all over the place. Basically, the only thing that was really similar at all was what a capital item is, but the dollar values which triggered, the capital was everywhere. So my recommendation after going through all of it is that the town administrator come up with an article, or basically maybe for next spring, picking up some of the things where, the things have changed in value. Things like, say we destroy a police car, which comes kind of frequently, and technically it has to be in the capital plan, because it's $25,000 or more for a new vehicle. You can't buy any new vehicle for less than 40 with equipment today anyway, so that number may be off as well. But the idea is if we have something what I call recovery of expense, insurance replacing the exact piece again, even if it costs more because of inflation, that's something basically the capital, even though the capital planning committee doesn't have it on their agenda for that particular vehicle, they've always got vehicles there. But the bottom line is that the town administrator should be able to go ahead and replace something that is that particular issue. We don't have that under the capital plan right now, so there's a few things we need to update. But we should do it on our own because there is no consensus anywhere. I think Derek mentioned a couple weeks back that Arlington was as low as $3,000, and some of the other communities were $100,000 more as a base, so it's everywhere.
Well, one's a replacement of a damaged vehicle. I think
Yep.
that's what brought it up.
Yeah.
And the other is the purchase of a new vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two different things, really.
But what I'm saying is that the piece is, right now, if you want to replace a vehicle, technically,
Correct.
it has to go the way we have it now, so that,
Want to create language.
yeah, so we have blinders on, so we should fix
And it
those
restricts
areas.
us from making these appropriations to every 6 months.
Yeah.
As opposed to giving them the freedom to go out and buy the new cruiser tomorrow.
As a replacement
Right.
for the damaged
Yeah,
one.
but I expect that the town administrator will submit something to us to look at for our approval.
Any vehicle that has 1 mile or more is used, right? Wasn't that an old rule?
Basically, once it hits the white line, it's it. Again, I'll reaffirm on the spur for Middleborough to Buzzards Bay on the commuter rail. Middleborough and Wareham will have a representative on the study committee, even though unfortunately the Cape Cod Commission is leading the study, which I still don't understand. Nobody else does either. Let's see what else we got. The Veterans Council I already talked about. The only other thing really happening is WCTV has expressed a possible interest in actually broadcasting through remote the Serped Commission monthly meetings, because it's online, by computer, and therefore that would give the residents of the town a better idea of not what's also happening in Wareham as far as projects, but especially what's happening in the whole region, which affects everybody. So I'm working to see if I can make that happen for them. That's it.
What are we charging Serped for that?
It's the other way around, but it's okay.
Okay, thank you. Patrick? liaison?
We already talked about what
Yeah.
meeting I was at.
Yeah. Judy? Jim?
No, nothing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really have anything either. Consent agenda, we got nothing.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned by Alan, seconded by
Me.
Patrick. Raised his hand first. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed, abstained, 500.
Good
Good
night,
night.
Wareham.
Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us while we got through this document. Have a good night.